What's up, gamers? Welcome to the Battle Mallet podcast. This is episode 17, Content Awakening. The Battle Mallet podcast is a podcast delving into the minds of four busy gamers, their annual journey to the Nova Open Convention, playing games that they love, and balancing life with those games. My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm here with Trace Hyde.
My beer you will hold.
And Jason Table Noob Murray.
Making orcs great again. I'm so taken back at the Yoda. When did Yoda get here? And why is he drinking beer?
I don't know, but I'm excited about it. So episode 17, this is a content awakening for us. It's going to be a doozy. We've got a lot of sections to get through. So Jason and I went to a recent Underworlds tournament at the Games Workshop in Raleigh. We want to talk about the new Warhammer Underworlds releases, so Rippa's Snarlfangs and the infamous gift pack. We want to talk about our recent community event where we gathered at a local store. We'll talk about where things stand with us in 40K and where we see things in the world of Warhammer 40K in general, and we're also going to talk about Age of Sigmar. So there's a lot to get through, but it's important to catch up. So before we get into everything that we want to talk about, what's everybody been up to? Trace?
I have been not building decks.
What's wrong with you?
I know, right?
I know. It's bad. So to catch anybody who has been following the show up, for a little while, my sister stayed with us because she was just she started a new job and was trying to save a little money and stuff. So my space that I typically hobby in kind of got taken over. And so I've just kind of been in kind of a hobby slump in all forms since that's happened. But getting back into it. And then also when we get into some of the community stuff that we've done later in the episode, we'll go over some of my reasons why not building decks all the time showed its ugly teeth. And speaking of teeth, I've been building a bunch of ogres.
Nom nom.
Yes, ogres nom nom. Jared and I split a Feast of Bones box, and I had some old ogres that just were in a box in my closet, in my attic, in my closet of shame.
I thought he was going to say something else. I'm like, oh, edit.
So when Jared was like, do you know anybody that might want to split a Feast of Bones box? I was like, I'll split one with you, whatever. No problem.
Anything you can do to enable anyone else's Age of Sigmar habits.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. So I've got a bunch of ogres sitting here on cork, ready to prime, ready to do all this other fun stuff. So that's what I've been up to. Jason, how about you?
Well, didn't you guys make a bet on this or a pact?
There was no bet. We just
a pact.
Yes.
Pact is the right word. So the goal is, number one, we're going to play through the story. So
yep.
So there's the campaign in the box that we want to play through. And number two, we're not going to play with the models until they're painted. And number three, we're going to try to get everything painted by Christmas. So we'll see.
Everything that was in the box.
Yes. Yep.
I mean,
not in the closet of shame.
Yes. Yes.
Insert word. Whatever you feel is your closet of then go for it.
Can it be my closet of Shaish?
Yes. Only if you make your Skeletor army. Yeah. Anyway, so that's what I've been up to.
Cool. I mean, by all the posts on Facebook with all that painting, you guys are well on your way.
We got over a month.
Closet of sarcasm from Jason.
So what have I been up to? A lot of Underworlds on TTS. As always, practicing, working those new cards, killing time. And then really my other major hobby progress, other than the community event and the tournament we went to, lots of board games. So one of the local shops here in Raleigh, Gamers Armory, does a board game raffle every year, with all the proceeds going to Autism Foundation. So, stopped in the shop and put a whole bunch of tickets, not a whole bunch, like $40 worth of tickets in a whole bunch of board games. And I won not one, but two. So I won Fireball Island, which is a game that I've been looking at for a while to play with Emma, because I had Fireball Island back when I was a wee lad. And then another game called Downforce, which I didn't know what it was at the time. It's like a racing car game, but come to find out, it's a reprint of the original game, and one of the iterations of the game through the years was a Milton Bradley Company board game called Daytona 500, which was also a board game that I played when I was younger. So Emma and I, and even Sarah, have been playing board games probably a few times over the last few weeks here, reliving my youth and further passing that torch with my daughter. So excited. Fireball Island is everything that I remember it to be, which is half annoying because the balls go everywhere.
Right.
But the race car game is a pleasant surprise. It's it teaches her math and movement and some bit of strategy, as in like the cars have to move in the color order that are on the card. So she's done fairly well with that one.
Nice.
And then, also too, in community, I do want to give a shout out to another podcast, Adam from the Best General podcast.
Wait, hold on. So, spoilers for the podcast. So, if you are currently listening to the Best General podcast and you have not finished the season, you probably want to skip ahead maybe a minute or two and then come back and listen to this later.
Oh, anyway. Okay. You're going to give spoilers because I wasn't.
Oh, you weren't going to give spoilers. Okay.
I just wanted, he concluded what we think is concluding his podcast for the season, and just wanted to give a shout out to him. Adam's podcast was, for me, one of the influential podcasts. We met him at Nova 2 years ago, and his approach into bringing his personal life into the podcast was something that I've never heard before. He was very, very transparent in what his quest is in hobbying and gaming.
It kind of sparked what we are now. A little bit. Yeah. So,
a big shout out to him and his podcast and what he's doing. So thanks, Adam, and congrats. So there. No spoilers. Boom.
Right. Nicely done. I like it.
And so, Jared, we know about AOS and you're splitting boxes with Bonereapers. I can't believe you cracked. I'm happy you cracked.
I didn't crack because I am the Petrifex Elite and I am molded from petrified bones. I'm uncrackable. No? No? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so...
by the power of Grayskull. Wrong.
Yeah, wrong. This Snake Mountain. Skeletor's Lair, obviously. Which I had that playset as a kid, and it was pretty cool. Anyway, so purchased the box with Trace. I have not fully assembled. So I think for the first time since I have started hobbying, I am going to paint something in subassembly. So
attaboy.
All of the Mortek Guard have shields, and none of the shields are glued on. And then Vokmorshin, the Tithe Master, I believe is his name, has a casket/backpack that is also not glued on. So, and none of the miniatures are on bases. So they are currently taped to painting sticks that are leftovers from our previous Age of Sigmar fun time painting frenzy, getting the Blades of Corn ready. So I'm still hanging onto those and using those, but everything in the box is fully assembled and primed. So hopefully in the next month or so, I will paint the 16 models that I need to paint. as my half of the box set. But I'm excited about the army. I think that it is going to do what I want it to do as far as gameplay is concerned. There's a focus on characters. They have fairly strong magic. And the thing for me is that the battle line troops are going to be tough. And that was something that was lacking for me when it came to the Lizardmen, that they had kind of shifted them from being these stalwart elite infantry into playing more like demons. So there were a lot of them with high leadership, but their save was not very good. And that is not going to be the case with the Bonereapers. And, we'll get into that, kind of my thoughts and feelings on that as we dive into there. But also just getting some games in. I've been able to, play some games on TTS, and then we had the event at the Games Workshop, and then our local community event, but just really trying different things. So spent some time with the Condemners, and I'm on the Wild Hunt now, but I think I'm going to bite the bullet, and I'll be our Grimwatch guinea pig kind of going forward for a little bit so that we can all have the chance to play against it fairly regularly.
Oh, darn. Are you really going to have to bite the bullet? Oh, poor you.
I know. It is. It's really sad, But other than that, it hasn't been a whole lot. Just kind of dealing with balancing things at home and, kind of getting schedules set and routines and things, especially leading into the holidays. Things start to get a little hectic, but that's that's been it for me. Until we get into, the actual meat, the actual content, where I'll dive more into, some of the actual games I played and things like that. So it sounds like, there's been a mild lull, but things are starting to pick back up. And I think, off the air before we started, Jason, you mentioned that, we're kind of trying to get over that Nova hangover. So I'm hoping that, I think we're all hoping that we can get back into the groove of things. So with that, I think we'll close out the intro, and then we'll come back for the next section.
And we're back. All right, fellas. You guys went to a tournament at our local Games Workshop store, a place that we have not really frequented as often as we used to. So some of my questions that I have for you surrounding this event is, why did we decide to go to the Games Workshop store? Jason?
Right. So it ties into just the bigger picture here. So in the last episode, we talked about, trying to make sure that I don't game the game, and then really growing the community. So knowing that the GW stores are going to have an isolated community of just GW product, I stopped by and talked to the manager and said, hey, when's your next event? Trying to get, more bodies and unite the greater Raleigh-Durham community. Mm-hmm. That was really the objective, was to go there and, and talk to the manager, because it's been a while, right? So kind of, I guess, for lack of, or for transparent, mend a relationship. So show that I'm still interested in the hobby and still interested in supporting the store, mm-hmm. And then find more people that are interested in Underworlds. Because when you get into GW specific stores, and we all know this because we spent 2 years just hanging out in GW stores, if not more, you kind of get isolated with that small community that those stores build. So I thought it would be a good time and a good way to go out there and meet more people that are passionate about the game. So
that's awesome. Jared, how many players did you guys end up having?
So there were 5 of us there, and I think that's been pretty normal for TJ's events at the store. That just for whatever reason, and Jason touched on it, the fact that those communities can be isolated, that they because I think that we were when we were there. We only ever played at the Games Workshop store. We only ever met people who also played at the Games Workshop store. So there were 5 of us. Stephen Cavanis, who has been at some other events, was one gentleman that we knew. But then there was another Stephen and a Nick.
Okay. All right.
That we met while we were there.
So typical like GW organized play rules, or were there tweaks to it, or what was going on?
Well, they only can have a max of 8 or 2. That's the other reason why these events are smaller, because the shop's so small.
Yeah, good point. Like, there's not a lot of room.
So.
Yeah, that's an important note. So I think by the time we ended up getting there, I think he wanted to run 4 rounds. So I think TJ's mentality there is to just get as many games in as time allows versus necessarily meeting to a single undefeated player.
Okay.
But originally on the calendar, he had it set up that the rounds were going to be 25 minutes. And then I think it shifted to
That's
30.
Short.
Yeah. So 25 minutes is fast, but by the time we started rolling dice and getting things going, I think he had blocked out 3 hours for 4 games. So he basically let every round play to completion. So it was best of 1, and ended up being 4 rounds. So I really appreciate, the flexibility there that he showed, because depending on the TO that you meet with or the event that you go to, they may have something set in stone and stick with it regardless of, how many people show up or kind of how the event plays itself out. But it was really cool of TJ to kind of be flexible and let games come to their natural conclusion instead of ending on time. But it was good in that regard. But then beyond that, it was the Beastgrave Q1 kit. So, there was glass on the line, and then alt art cards for Skate's Wild Hunt and Gashrax to Spoilers, and then
awesome.
the new movement charge tokens, so 2-sided acrylic movement charge tokens.
Oh, cool.
Which are really cool because there's no way for the symbols to get scratched off. So anybody that's got some of the older acrylic, like the colored tokens, not the green ones from Nightvault, but the actual colored tokens from Shadespire, I've heard, because I don't have any of those, because I wasn't in the game then, so it's my own fault. Anyway, I didn't want to sound like I was blaming anyone. But they're really cool because they're 2-sided, so the art is kind of in the middle of 2 pieces of acrylic. So,
okay, cool.
Yep.
Well, now that we've moved on from Jared being on the bitter bus,
well, there was another key point that happened at the start of that tournament, right? So, we walk in, and I have I'm just here to grow the community, and TJ lays on us what, Jared? What's the first sentence out of his mouth?
We have a code.
There's a code.
Oh, yeah.
The code.
Yeah, the code. Which
switch engaged.
It was not. I wish it honestly did not happen, but it wouldn't have changed my games either way. But it definitely changed my mindset for about 3 minutes. I was like, do I really want to do this with this warband?
Yeah.
So speaking of warbands, what was the meta like? What did you guys have to face?
So, Jason, you brought?
I brought the orcs. So going back to, Iron Skull Boys, right? Their official name. Yeah. Going back to last episode, if you guys hadn't heard, I've been struggling with trying to be a better community leader and not play the game on 10 with high-powered warbands. So between Trace and Jared saying hey, you should go back to season 1, and then I forget who it was, but somebody's like, you should play orcs, or Iron Skulls. So I took Iron Skulls, which was for me exciting because 1, I've had the Iron Skull Boys painted since my son was born, so we're close to 2 years.
Painted by who?
By me. They're my own. They're not the last. The dwarfs are the last thing I finished, but they're really the last project that I was like fully committed to. So the armor is airbrushed. The skin has multiple layers of green. They're like one of my warbands or one of my painting projects, period, that I'm extremely proud of. And they've never been on the table in a legitimate Underworlds game. We've played the Giants. We've, played the spin-off things, and I always use them because it's like, oh, I'm going to use them, and just so they're out there. But this was the first time that they ever saw the tabletop. So I was pretty excited to do that, and I thought it would be fun and engaging warband. So I brought orcs, and then Jared brought...
I brought Skate's Wild Hunt. So, yeah, I know, right? Yeah, they're really crushing the meta right now. I think that my mentality was probably a little bit more competitive initially in the event than Jason's was. But I still wanted to bring something that I was going to have fun with, that was going to be engaging, with my opponent. Like the hunt, they want to get in there, right? I'm not trying to play keep away. I'm not playing this non-interactive solitaire version of Underworlds with them or anything like that. And I had fun. And then Steven brought his Profiteers, and then there was another Wild Hunt,
which the other Steven brought, and then Nick brought the Despoilers.
Okay.
So 2 Hunt, 1 Profiteers, 1 Despoilers, and 1 Iron Skulls Boys.
Awesome. So we don't have to do like a match by match recap, but what were some of the high points of your evening, or low points?
So I think the high point was watching someone that is near and dear to my heart win a code. And it wasn't me. Spoilers.
Did you call an ambulance?
No, not that kind of
code. Somebody coding is not a good thing.
Not that kind of code. No.
All right.
Learning how to play again, really. Like how to make decisions I get so frustrated with myself, with the decisions that I make and not committing to them or wavering. And in my game against Jason, I made a pretty bad decision that put me slightly on the back foot.
Yeah, so let's
take backsies. Backsies.
Let's set it up a little bit. So I got a first round bye. Jared had to play Steven. Right. And Steven Steven we know. So Steven that had Thunderous Profiteers. Right. And Steven's a really good player when it comes to Profiteers. Like when I saw that he had Profiteers, I was like, oh, this is going to be tough for both of us. And you won that game, right? So that was round 1. You took that game fairly well. So we go into round 2 and we know that there's only going to be there's 3 more rounds, but really it's going to come down to probably this, because if Jared takes this, then he's only going to win 1 more game, and then he's going to take a bye, and everything will be good. So there was that, and there's a little running joke between. I think it's a joke.
It's totally a joke. I laugh.
You do get kind of red-faced at times.
I do.
But in the intro we referenced the Best General podcast, and in that one of his episodes he talks about being in someone's pocket, which really just means you're in someone's head, and no matter what they do, like they're fighting an uphill battle. Now, Jared and I play a lot, but on TTS, I would say you probably, even TTS, or you come over the house, whatever it is, you probably take more than you lose.
I think that's probably true. Yeah.
But when we go to an event,
I know.
Climb right into my pocket.
I do. I just sit there. I just nestle up right there in your pocket, sit next to the pocket knife.
Tiny little Jared ferret sitting there in Jason's pocket.
Pushing the buttons on your keys.
So now go into your decision-making processes.
So I know Jason's deck.
Yeah, because you crushed me 2 days before. Like,
Right.
crushed me.
And you know my deck. Like, there's no surprises anywhere in this game. It's going to come down to, like, gamesmanship, like who plays the better game. So I draw decent ploys, including Crown of Avarice, or decent power cards. So I had Crown of Avarice, I had Lethal Ward, and this was before they nerfed Crown so that enemy gambits counted, but friendly gambits don't, for Stealing Glory and all of that. But I'm looking at my objective hand, and I see Keep Them Guessing, Fired Up, and Path to Victory. And I'm looking at the orcs, and I know that the general damage output for Skaith's Wild Hunt tends to be middling. So nobody does 3 damage uninspired. Typically don't want to get Cartheon, who's the Horncaller, in the mix too early, because he has the horn and he is the one that goes to 3 damage when he inspires. So you kind of want to keep him safe a little bit. So it's, I don't want to throw him out there with a charge to get him inspired too early. So I let Path to Victory overshadow the ease of which my warband is capable of scoring Keep Them Guessing and Fired Up. Like, Toot the Horn, move a person, put somebody on guard, last activation, charge with Skaith, right? So he inspires. He's now on 2 shields. There's no innate cleave anywhere in the Iron Skulls boys. But I knew that Jason was going to be able to play the passive game, and so I didn't expect to be able to get a kill and be on 2 objectives by the time activation phase 1 was done. And so I think I just got it in my head that if I can't score everything, I should ditch and draw a hand that I should be able to score everything. The problem there is that I ditched 5 glory.
Yep.
and 3 glory and Path to Victory in my hand for activation 2 is way better than having a glory cap of 11 or 12, I think. So, just letting one aspect of one objective overshadow my ability to score what I could score with relative ease is, it was painful. Like, I got upset about that decision. And I think it was the least upset that I've gotten at an event when I've made a mistake. Like, I feel like I'm getting better, but it's still like, the problem is that I start to cycle, right? So I make a mistake, and then I get frustrated about the mistake, and then I get frustrated that I'm frustrated about the mistake, and then it just...
You spin.
Yeah. So, I don't know. We talked about this before. I got to figure out how to fix that. But what's crazy is that I took out Gurzag in the first activation phase. Yeah, the 5 health fighter just deleted.
Bye.
So
Hero bye.
Yeah. So it was like, I did all that for nothing.
So going back to your decision, right? So just having been in that situation and you ditch your hand, right?
Right.
And Jason actually brought this up to me when I was struggling with this at one point. And he said, just ditch what you don't want and draw a power card. So or draw an objective card, right?
Yeah.
So instead of you tooting your horn, you ditch Path to Victory if you don't think you can do it, and draw objective, right?
Yeah.
So,
and I think that works for every case except I had Keep Them Guessing in my hand.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's true.
But that's it. Like, that's, I think any other objective in hand, that would have been a totally legitimate strategy.
Yeah, I just think that that's something that's valuable that people just kind of, like, especially on that very first hand, right?
Right.
You look at it and you go, well, shit, if I can't score all this, then I need to ditch it.
Yep.
When, depending on what you have in your hand, that could just dictate dropping one and picking one back up with your first activation. So.
Yep.
I also think it is so. Being players that have played through all 3 seasons, when you draw that first hand, he's looking at 3 end phase scoring. And for anyone that played in Nightfall, 3 end phase scoring, you'd be like, no.
Yep.
Like, you'd be like, I'm stalled out. Like, if I don't score 1 of these or 2 of these, like, I'm done. Like, I'm so far behind. But Beastgrave has changed that with 6, and I understand that there are some warbands that score quicker and faster than others. But like ditching those 5 end phase scoring, you need, like, it's my opinion, you needed to look at it like if you could score 2 of them with ease.
Yep.
And that should have been fine, because then what are you going to cycle into in turn 2? Like, now your objective deck is down to 9 cards, and 6 of those are score immediately. Like,
and that's where your memory game really comes into play, right? So, like, you have to really think about what else is here.
Right.
And, if you can get those 2, and then you sit on path to victory, and you draw 2 score immediatelys, and then you draw a bunch of aggro cards to go with it, then you're in good shape. So,
and I also think, like, to go back to the reference, like, in my pocket, you play so much in my deck, and this can be for really anyone. Sometimes we sit, like, when we go to Nova, you sit down at the table, you look at the faction across from you, and you're like instantly, you're like, what are they doing? And like Amon, like, he does that all the time. He'll constantly be like, oh, you have this card, you have this card. And sometimes you don't have this card. And everybody that I played at GW that day, they're like, oh, you're orcs, you're going to line up on the line and just rush me, which that's what I had to do for some things, but that's not the way I deployed, right? Because it's this whole counter thing. Like, and I think for players, although when you get to the top echelon, like, you need to know what the other person is doing, but never forget what you want your deck to do. And in that situation, you could have come and punched me, scored 3 glory, and ran the way, and I wouldn't have been able to touch you, right? Like,
right. Yep.
So,
yep.
And then my favorite part of that game, like was the happenstance that he, like, moves the cat, scores calculated risk, and then plays Lethal Ward, which honestly, Lethal Ward, like, because he wanted to get, he had a
Crown of Avarice.
So he was going to get, it was 2 glory for him, so it's not a bad play, but getting Lethal Ward out of his hand was like, that's 1 plate damage that isn't not going to come back at me.
Right.
And on top of that, I had strong start, so it's like, sweet, like, you got 2 glory, I have 1 glory, and that's really, if I wouldn't have got that 1 glory, it would have, like, derailed. And he killed a fighter, which one of my cards is a good scrap, and 3 fighters have to be out.
Yeah.
And I was like, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be able to score that, but he killed a fighter, and then, as he mentioned, he ran in and killed Gerzeg, and I was like, oh my lord, like, I'm done, like. And then just the cards and the dice and all that played out. Like, there was a I got Tome of Offering on Bone Cutter, was able to get him up to mid-board through ploys.
Bone Cutter.
Yeah, through ploys, kill somebody, and then I won the roll to go into turn 2, which allowed me to then charge through a damage hex, score calculated risk, and take out another fighter. So,
Jared, you got double turned.
He did get double turned. So. And I did misspeak earlier. Like, that was actually the game 3 of the whole scenario. So, like, there was a game after that, but if Jared had taken that game, like, it would have, the whole tournament would have swung in his favor. So, I also think that played into your mindset a little bit too. So.
Oh yeah.
Because you had already beaten both the Stevens, so you had taken out Thunderix, and you had taken out the mirror match in Wild Hunt. So, but the tournament wasn't a complete wash for you. You did take home 1 prize.
That's true. I got the alt art Amberbone hammer. So
sweet.
TJ set it up. He did like War Wounds or something. So whichever warband did the most damage over the course of the tournament won that card. So, and I think I was the only player to not have a bye.
Yes, you played 4 rounds.
Yep. And I barely got the thing. So I think that just speaks to Skate's Wild Hunt's kind of middling damage output.
The twirling pony kicks, man.
Yep. Well, nobody ever clumped up. I couldn't do twirling kicks. Sad.
So, and then for me, Trace, like I took a bye for round 1. And really, so I took the orcs because they are quote unquote an underpowered faction. So my expectations to go in it were, I kept telling myself, like, while sitting there watching round 1, and then as I'm playing in my first game, of like, it's okay. Like, just don't overthink it. Just go with the flow, smile, let people shoot at your orcs and kill your orcs, right? So my first game is against Steven with going against Profiteers. And if I'm being honest, I don't know how I pulled this game out. Steven played it really well. We both had one misplay, so the other element of, having 30-minute rounds, like I'm using air quotes because it's good radio, was, we did not know that TJ would let games play to completion. So there was this element of like, hurry up. So both Steven and I both made mistakes through the game that cost us like both a glory, if not more, because who knows what that spirals into. But he played it real well. Like he pushed up. Well, let me back up a little bit. My orcs are set up to play choppy a little bit. They're like it's a flex deck. What I'm learning is I have one style play no matter what I'm playing with, and I'm going to put cards in there that I can score semi-reliably, and then I'm going to put stuff in there that kind of counterpunches you when you come in. It's the way that I like to play. So, most of the objectives were things that didn't matter if I killed somebody. There were one or two in there, but like good scrap and swift and path to victory. But they're all things that I can probably score. Oh, and the biggest and the best. So there's 3 in there that kill. But then my gambits is really probably where the deck shifts from a typical orc deck. Like I had Cunning but Brutal, because that is, a very, very a solid card. You can make an attack after a move, and the whole premise to make Iron Skull Boys work in Beastgrave is you have to get additional attacks by not charging. Like that's so it's whether it's pushing or movement, like you have to get additional attacks. Otherwise you're not going to be able to keep up with a lot of warbands. So Cunning but Brutal was one of the key cards. And then actually, your guys' recommendation and Randall, Commanding Stride. It's a card that I've never used in any of my war bands, but it was like
Great
it was crucial in this deck to get Gurzag in a position to do something. I ran Supremacy and Denial, which people always go after me on Denial, but if Jared had done what I think he should have done, and that's got up a couple glory and ran away, Denial, like, that's a huge end of the game score, so you have to keep pressing the advantage towards me to making sure that I don't get Denial. And then just every single ploy in the Gambits. So it's like Confusion, Commanding Stride, Mirror Move, Shadowed Step, Shifting Reflection, Sidestep, 2 steps forward, and Restless Prize, which are all kind of like movement or moving objective shenanigans. And then just 2 accuracy things, right? So like Determined Effort and Keep Chopping to get people up to 3 dice. So going into the game with the Profiteers, I didn't think I had a chance. And when Steven came in, he came in and started doing some plink damage to Gurzag, but his rolls, like, he just wasn't scoring glory. Like, he'd come in and do plink damage and wasn't like tying that into objectives very well. Like, it just was the way his hand was. So I was able to take out 2 fighters with Gurzag, but he spent a whole bunch of time putting damage on him, and through the whole tournament, or when I play the orcs, I don't want to damage them. Like, the way that I'm playing them is just their base stats, and if they get inspired, they get inspired. The only one that I may run through a damage hex and inspire on purpose would be Bone Cutter, just so he goes to 3 damage and can score fired up. But Steven upgraded his fighters to all like 4 or 5 wounds through just upgrades or inspiration, and I couldn't do anything. So it came down to the end of the game. We both had 10 glory. Thank you, Supremacy, for getting me 3 glory to keep up. And Tome of Offerings for the other 4 glory that I was able to get from those 2 kills. And I had 1 objective. So, and I wasn't even, it was like, during the game, I really didn't think I had a chance. So I wasn't even keeping up with glory at all throughout the game. And he counted up, he's like 10. And I'm like, well, I have 10 too. Like, wow. So, yeah, I took that, and then I went on to play Jared, and we went through that little sequence. And then the last game I got to play the other Steven, and that one, at that point, that's when the code kicked in. It was like, I didn't do anything like I didn't do in any other game, but it was like, holy cow, like here I have a chance to get the code. And really, that Steven, being an inexperienced player, just ran. He charged everyone in on turn 1. He lawnboarded me and then charged everyone in, and it didn't really swing my favor until end of turn 2. But he just gave me targets to swipe at, and I didn't land anything. Like, I was like, just like everyone was still on the board, people were damaged, and it was like, holy cow, this is a wet noodle slap fest. And then all of a sudden, the dice changed and the cards came up. So I ended up by scoring Supremacy, Path to Victory, and Good Scrap all at the end of turn 2. And that was 7 glory, and then it just spiraled out of control from there. So,
awesome.
The orcs pulled it out, and I still can't believe it. But they're really, really fun, and don't underestimate 4 4-wound or 3 4-wound and 1 5-wound fighter in Warband and Beastgrave. So.
Yeah. The 17-wound Warband, man, makes a huge difference. Especially since like the overall like spike damage has gone down a little bit. So like unless you're close to lethals and have cards in your hand, like you're not doing 4 or 5 damage in one go most of the time.
Nope.
So, well, that's awesome. I mean, I'm really happy for you, Jason, that you won. Jared,
get in my pocket.
It's so warm. It's just cozy.
You're the only member of the group now that doesn't have one.
Well, this is Jason's second, so like we could have said that last episode.
I could have, but I'm reinforcing it this time. I'm kidding. No, I'm really glad you guys had a good time, and I look forward to us being able to get some more tournaments. All 3 of us. I was not able to come to this because, as we talk about on this show, life and balancing life with those games. So my wife and I have season passes to the Durham Performing Arts Center. And that was a weekend that we were supposed to go see a show, and I chose to not even approach the subject when I remembered that we actually had a show that weekend. So I went and spent some time with my wife, which was the right choice, and I'm glad you guys had a good time. And then I guess when we come back from our break, Jared will talk to us a little bit about some of the new tasty treats that we're going to be getting with our new card packs. We'll see you guys in a minute.
Welcome back.
Rawr.
Good timing. So, Rippa Snarlfangs and that gift pack, though. So, new warband.
Yes!
So, new warband coming out. Goblin Wolf Riders.
I love the puppies.
I know. The models are awesome. So, I figured we could take a little bit of time to talk about, our first impressions of that warband and their cards, the universal cards that are going to come in that pack, and then the universal cards that are coming in the gift pack. So we'll start with the Rippa's Snarlfangs. So for anybody that's not familiar, a 3-fighter warband, 4 health. I feel like we just talked about the potency of 4 health fighters. So kind of some distinctions from the other 4 health fighter warbands. These guys all start at move 4 and go to move 5 when they inspire. They start on 1 shield and go to 2 dodge on inspiration. So that's kind of
it's a good and bad thing.
Yeah, but
more chance for crits, but there's more in snare now.
Yeah, and the dodge is not as likely. But the interesting thing is that all of these fighters have an attack action, Snarlfangs Jaws, that you could either do whenever you want, or you can do it as part of a reaction after this fighter's activation that includes an attack action other than this attack action. So it's not after an attack action, it's after an activation, but essentially you're going to get 2 chances to fight with each of these models. So when we were initially looking at these cards, Jason and I were like, are these guys any good? Like, I don't know. They seem pretty weak. And then Trace was like,
y'all are silly. You get to attack twice with every model. And you get to reroll. Basically, you're getting to ready for action every time you play one of these cards. Like, you get to attack and then attack again. Or if you whiff your attack, you get to reroll, essentially. And, you can dome a 4-wound fighter right out of the gate with Rippa, which is the leader of the warband. So, and I noticed these things because I'm probably more of the resident aggro player, so I was like, oh, damage. And while it's subtle. It's not it's not like when you're looking at Malog and he's like, oh my gosh, he has a 4 damage attack when he inspires just out of the gate.
Yeah.
It's a little more subtle, but I think having the flexibility to use that extra attack in more than one way is really, really cool. But we can talk more about that in just a minute, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you made the point of it's like a built-in pit trap,
Yeah.
It's a built-in 2 damage pit trap.
Yeah, like it's an extra. If you look at it, like, okay, you missed your first attack, you have extra accuracy on that first attack because you get another, Snarlfang attack, right?
Yeah.
And then if you're setting your movement or decision making to go into an attack and not relying on the jaws, like, it's really just like playing a ploy card for trying to get damage. So
yeah. So the Snarlfangs Jaws, they're not super accurate. Uninspired, it's 1 range, 1 dice looking for smashes, 2 damage. Inspired, it's range 1, 2 dice looking for furies, 2 damage. So not super accurate, but anything that you can put on these guys to give them extra accuracy, and they have some impaction stuff, and then there's, the universal
other than
stuff.
dice, you cannot modify the damage or the dice.
Yeah, you can't add dice or damage to the Snarlfang's Jaws attack. The model on top you can modify all day, just like a normal model.
But if you can add supports or rerolls or anything like that, it's definitely going to give you some stuff. So I think that, I don't know that we need to go through every card unless you guys disagree.
No, I don't think we do.
But if
people can go look for themselves if they want to go see.
Yeah, there are plenty of blogs that have reviews and stuff like that. But I thought it would be interesting if you guys could call out maybe like 1 or 2 objectives that you really like from their set.
Sure.
So I don't know if anybody's got one to hand.
There's a couple that I like that are their faction cards specifically.
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about right now. So I think we should pick a faction card that we think will be good, and then a non-faction card that we think will be good.
I like that.
So probably one of my favorites for this particular warband is Conquered Land. So this says score in an end phase if your warband holds all objectives in one or more players' territories. So with some of the new upgrades that came out, and with, there's ability for you to tease it, right? So you can put it in no man's land, right? And then you've got one objective in your board half, or you can go all three if you want to. I just think it's a really flexible card, and it's a good way for you to tease your opponent to come closer to you, which is what you want, right? And it says score in an end phase if your warband holds all objectives in one or more players' territories, and it's for 2 glory. So it's basically like Reclaim the Lemon stuff like that. It's probably not the most popular pick, but I just think it's a solid pick that allows you to play more of that flex style that we've talked about. And I think that's kind of where these guys are going to live. Like, they're aggro, but I think they've got some good in-faction cards that allow them to, like, supplement themselves if they need to. So that's my first in-faction card.
Yeah. I like it. Jason, what you got?
Oh, there's
a lot.
They're like... Yeah, I mean, I'll give honorable mention to Loaded with Plunder, which is upgrades, only because it's 2 glory. So, go look at that. But I think the one that, for me, that I really like, because it ties into the fact that they're going to, attack, is the leading the charge, which is a surge. Score this immediately after your leader makes a successful attack action as part of a charge action for 1 glory. Like, he's really accurate, uninspired with 2 hammers. You want to get him into being attacked so your other fighters can be inspired.
Yep.
And, like, given the way I think you're going to need to play this with kind of accuracy cards through upgrades, it can be a really, really good, like, we're going to get the wheels of churning surge objective. And
it synergizes perfectly with Rippa's Inspire condition, which is he wants upgrades.
Yep.
So, like, it's just I think it really, really plays into the warband, and I would like it that it's an aggro surge objective that doesn't necessarily mean you have to kill something.
Mm-hmm.
And the movement that's in this warband, it'll be easier to do. As well as, cards with like calculated risk and stuff like that, although they may still live in this warband. Remember what we just said in the last segment. 3-4 wound fighters, like, you don't want to diminish the wounds that are on 4 wound fighters in Beastgrave just because, like, they can be so potent. So I think that this card fits into there nicely.
Yeah, peeling off that 4th wound that's the, like, hard part. 3 damage is pretty...
Yep.
Pretty doable. Yeah. No, that's a good choice. I think that was going to be my first choice, but I have a second choice, so backup plans.
Man.
There's a reason I picked that one I first did, because I knew that the other ones were...
Yeah, so I really like Burning Spite, and I think this one would pair well with the one that Jason just picked, with leading the charge. So Burning Spite is surge. Score this immediately after an activation if 2 or more surviving friendly fighters are inspired. So I think that, realistically, what you want to do is maybe try to get some passive stuff or some easy glory, then throw Rippa into enemy territory, as a juicy target, have him be attacked. As soon as he is targeted by an attack, the other 2 guys inspire, and then boom.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. 1 glory. Score immediately. Like.
Yep.
So I think that's my pick for the in-faction objective. So Trace, what about gambits?
Well, let's go to an out of faction.
Oh, you want to go do the out of faction objectives? Yeah,
let's do that.
Okay.
So the next one that I put in kind of my test deck that I've got going right now is one from this card pack, but it's not exclusive to them, and it's called Brought to Bay. Surge, duel, score this immediately if a friendly hunter makes an attack action that takes an enemy fighter out of action and that enemy fighter was in enemy territory. So all three of these fellas are hunters.
Yep.
And this synergizes well with the one that Jason brought up. So if you've got both of these in hand and you get lucky and you go and dome somebody, you've now got 3 glory.
Well, we remember how potent though.
Wow.
Yep, only a hunter, but
Yep.
it's really good. Like advancing strike is really good. And then we'll get into more of why this is a good thing in a little while.
Yep. All right.
Jared, you go next. I don't want to take yours again.
Okay. So I talked last episode about how much I love hybrid objectives. So gathered momentum, I think, is a good one. So surge hybrid, score this immediately if you scored your second or subsequent surge objective in a phase, or a friendly fighter makes a charge action and ends that action 5 or more hexes from the hex in which they began the action. So it's a cover ground in which you have to move 5 hexes and it has to be part of a charge. So easier, shorter distance, and these guys all go to move 5 when they're inspired. Or it's a weaker building momentum.
Combination strike.
Well, no, I thought there was one that was a surge. It's like, no, there are no surges.
There are no surges,
current surges for scoring surges. So, yeah, it's a surge. It's only 1 glory, but it's a surge combination strike, which is good for kind of cycling through. So
okay, so give us a bonus one that's not a surge objective.
Man, you're making me think. Why don't we go to Jason? Because I don't want to steal his.
Okay. Jason, go ahead.
What is it? Temporary
victory.
Temporary victory. Like
that's the one.
It goes without, like, this is the card of the set, right? So it's a surge objective. Score this immediately after an activation if your warband holds 3 or more objectives. It's, it's already into spoilers. It's already in Grimwatch. Now they can double up on it. It's
super good.
Super, super silly. Like,
and it even works in this warband.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if you want all 3 of them, but I mean, that's a good point. Like, you might not, your first pass, you might be like, oh, I don't want to get on objectives, but you have to have a plan to control objectives in Beastgrave. So, it's the 2 glory. It's the 2 glory. Yes, it could be a lot of work, but most of the people are running pushes and stuff, so it's not a full 3 activations to get it done. So
yeah.
All right. Now give me a bonus, not surge objective.
Run ragged. So score this in any phase if each fighter has 1 or more move and or charge tokens. I can easily see that being a thing that you would do in this warp. Okay. So there's the bow guy. So his threat range is 7 uninspired, and then the guy with the spear is range 2 attack. So threat range of 6 uninspired.
But it's not just your warband.
Nope.
Oh, if each surviving fighter.
Yeah, so
that's the tricky one. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. Man, read RTFM.
No, it's like we led you into that just to make sure, like, it's a key point for our listeners of this is a one of those cards you look at and you're like, oh, this is really good, and then you actually read the words and you're like,
oh, it's not as good.
Oh, not as good.
All right, Jason. Give me a bonus, not surge objective.
There isn't one.
Well, you can only have 6 surges in your deck, so.
They're really, I mean, like, the set only has, 9 in it? Right? Am I counting right?
Well, not necessarily from this set. I just mean, like, in general, what is a non-surge objective that you're looking at to potentially use with this warband?
Oh, Fired Up. Fired Up is like...
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
good choice. Yep.
Fired
I
up
like it.
for sure.
Especially since it came off the restricted list.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I like Path to Victory.
Really, you'd like to hold 2 more objectives, like with 3 fighters?
Yeah,
Okay.
That flex, yo.
I do.
It's there. You could do it.
Yep.
Way
Anyway,
easier than holding 3. All right, so gambits. In-faction gambits. What do you like, Jason?
I don't know. I like anything that gives me extra accuracy. Like,
How about Savage Mauling? So the first range 1 or range 2 attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has +1 dice and +1 damage for each supporting friendly fighter.
I do, like, I really, really like that card, and people are going to be like, well,
I love
why?
that card, but for reasons we'll get into later.
But, like, I like that card because, and I think I know where you're going, Trace, and we won't spoil it till we get to the upgrades, but I think on its own, that card is very difficult to do, but given some of the upgrades where, like,
Yep.
which make it easier, that card can really shine.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, what you got, Trace?
Smell Weakness. The first attack action made by a friendly fighter in the next activation has Cleave and Ensnare if the target has 1 or more wound tokens.
Oh, I like that. Yeah.
So you plink with your bow, and somebody charges in on the next activation, and they have a Cleave and Ensnare.
Yeah, you don't get any defense. Sorry. Crits only.
That's my first pick.
Nice. I like it.
Because it improves on accuracy, like we talked about.
Yep. So I think for me, it's Furious Reprisal. So this is essentially aggressive defense, but it's not. It doesn't stop the pushback, but it gives you a reroll any number of dice in the attack roll. So if you know that you're going to get hit for 1 damage or 2 damage, if you know that your opponent has already played Pit Trap or Snare, this is one that you could play, and then even if you get driven back, the guy with the spear and the guy with the bow are still going to be able to attack. And then depending on upgrades, if you give them what's the upgrade that lets you push after an attack action?
Duelist Speed.
Yeah, so then you could get back adjacent to apply supports, or get back onto an objective if you got knocked off on an objective or whatever. So anything that's going to give you extra attack actions. Well, anything that gives you extra actions in general outside of an activation is pretty
good.
potent. Yep.
Yep.
So
Jason.
Universal upgrade, Universal Gambit for this warband.
For this warband?
Yeah. Either from this set or from another set.
I really I wouldn't run it in this one though, but all right.
Then don't pick it.
I won't pick it.
Okay.
I think for tracking is going to be a ploy that really comes up a lot. So tracking is +1 move to the first fighter that makes a move action, then the next activation, right? Good. We're all starved for movement. With just that wording, I might lean more to ploys and pushes, but the second sentence +2 move instead if that fighter is a hunter, and in this warband you go to 6 or 7 move.
Savage.
Can be good.
It's gross.
In the reverse, then Grimwatch can also use it and be even more move friendly. So
Yeah.
Jared, you?
So hostile ground. So choose one enemy fighter in your territory that is on or adjacent to 1 or more lethal hexes. That fighter has dealt 1 damage. So, push somebody. You don't even have to push somebody into a lethal hex to do the damage. You can just push them next to a lethal hex, and you get that plink damage, which I think is going to be. I think that these are probably, they have the best damage output per fighter from any of the warbands released. But I still think that they're going to need need some extra damage in their power deck, and I think that's a good way to get it. What do you got, Trace?
I like downwind.
I do not like downwind.
No?
It is very stinky downwind.
It is. It will be especially stinky when the wolf gets to push an extra hex closer to you just because he's a hunter.
Yeah.
So this is not a super popular card right now, but when the quarry mechanic becomes a little bit more popular, and especially with all these upgrades that are coming out that have the quarry keyword attached to them, the wording on this says, push one friendly hunter 1 hex closer to an enemy fighter. That enemy fighter is a quarry. This effect persists until that enemy is out of action. So you just get to push towards whatever fighter you want to choose for the rest of the game.
Yep.
Until that fighter's out of action.
I like it.
Super powerful. Just get closer and closer.
I'm taking a bonus because I thought Trace would pick the card that I think we'll see a ton of play in a lot of warbands, and that's Unexpected Peril, which is pick 1 feature token in an empty hex in your territory and flip that token. This one will really help with, this warband or Yatharis that have to control
all the objectives
in one territory. So objectives are the real deal, yo. So we need all the help we can get in disrupting those objectives.
Yeah.
And then my one other one that I like for the more flex style is pack tactics. Choose 1 friendly fighter and push and up to 2 friendly fighters adjacent to that fighter. Push each fighter 1 hex. So if you think about your Shadespire board, right, or your which one was it? The most recent pack that they released, the board pack that has the 3 hexes right there next to each other.
Yep.
You
push 3 fighters, 1 hex each.
Yep. And then based on the way that those are set up, you can have those to where you push 2 fighters onto an objective, and on your next activation, you move to an objective, and boom, score temporary victory.
There you go.
Shattered Refractor is the name of that board.
That one. Cool. All right, what do we think about upgrades? Upgrade.
Upgrades.
I know which one I'm picking. I'm gonna say it.
Let's go for it.
Bonded.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah, so it's an in-faction spirit bond. So when this fighter makes an attack action that targets an adjacent enemy fighter or is the target of an attack action made by an adjacent enemy fighter, this fighter is considered to have 1 additional supporting fighter. So it's spirit bond but requires adjacency. So, it's not going to necessarily work, if you're using a ranged attack at range, but you want to be adjacent for attacks anyway because the Snarlfangs jaws are range 1, and this pairs quite nicely with the Savage Mauling Gambit that we talked about earlier. So they're always counted as being supported. So you're getting an extra dice and an extra damage on your base attack, which could push an inspired Rippa to 4 hammers, 4 dice.
And then bonded hits on the jaws, and don't forget you can attack with the jaws twice on other fighters. Like Rippa doesn't make sense because his first attack is more accurate, but
you can't attack with the jaws twice. So if you do the jaws as a regular attack, you can't use that reaction.
Yep.
But you're still but you're still pushing the spear to 2 damage, you're pushing the bow to 2 damage, and there are other upgrades, right? Great Strength, Glory Seeker.
Yep. And this one also too, like Spirit Bond, I think we'll talk about it here because it's the same card, right? So the nice thing about this one, although you have to have the adjacency, like you don't have to select another fighter that can remove it. Yeah. So like if you put this on Rippa, like he still is the fighter that everyone's going to attack, and it takes his 2 dodge to really 2 shields without cleave getting through. So
yep.
Good stuff.
All right. What do you like, Jason?
Bonded.
You don't like
You like Spirit Bond.
you don't like the boss hat?
I mean, they're all good.
No, that's fair.
No, I'd really like.
Boss hat's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's a cool upgrade.
It's I like how thematic it is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So boss hat is if your leader is out of action, +1 defense, +1 damage to this fighter's range 1 and range 2 attacks. So it can be put on either of the other fighters. It just requires him to be out of action, which is like people are going to go after him because he just mop you up. So
yeah.
Trace.
I like. Where's it at? Hunt is 1. When this fighter supports a friendly fighter, this fighter is considered to be 2 supporting fighters.
Oh, fancy.
Pairs
well with Spirit Bond.
All
All
Where
the
are we
accuracy.
going with this?
Yeah.
So I like that one.
Gosh, that would be bananas.
Yeah.
You put Bonded on Rippa, then you
Yep.
put Spirit Bond on somebody else, and you put Hunt as 1 on Rippa, and like that other person's getting 2 supporting fighters, and oh wait, Rippa's got 2 upgrades on him now. So
Yeah. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yerp. It's good. All right. Universal upgrades for them. Spirit Bond. Is that the universal opinion?
Yes, Spirit Bond. I think is.
It's a very safe choice.
Yes, it's a very.
It's a good restricted card. It's offensive and defensive. It's a good card on them. Mine is 2. The first is Opening Strike, which is 1 range, 3 fury, 1 damage, and it has the combo keyword.
Combo.
And the second is Inescapable Blow. Reaction. After this fighter's successful attack action with combo, see previous, make this attack action. It must target the same fighter and has cleave and ensnare. And it is 2 smash, 2 damage, 1 range. So you can do essentially 3 damage off of 2 attacks, but you get an extra activation.
Yep.
So
and then if you put it on these guys, then you get the wolf bite. Because the wolf bite reacts. Oh no, I think
you can't.
That.
It
Yeah,
eats
because
some
after the attack action.
Yeah. But I like this because it's a more accurate.
Yep. Wolf bite.
Yep.
With cleave and ensnare.
Yes.
Yeah, it just brings that. It brings it into other factions, and one thing that we failed to mention, both the wolf bite and like this type of combo, you don't like have to react. Well, this one you do, but the wolf bite doesn't have to go to the same fighter, right? Like you can bite somebody else standing next to him.
Yeah. This doesn't say you can make this attack action. It says make this attack action. So it has to eat that window after the attack.
Yeah, and the Inescapable Blow has to go against the same fighter. So
correct. Yeah.
But yeah, like lethality is there. We just got to dig for it now.
Yeah. But you think about it this way: if you've got great strength on, right? Now that's a 5 damage attack.
Yeah. R.I.P. Gerzak.
So
cool. All right. Any other? All right. So that's Rippa Snarlfangs in a nutshell. All right. So what about the other universals? So I think Temporary Victory that Jason brought up is a pretty
potent.
That's pretty potent. That's really good for a lot of warbands, especially those warbands that have a lot of activation efficiency. So you're looking at the Gits with Scurry. You're looking at the Thorns of the Briar Queen with Varkalov's Push, right? 2 glory for getting onto 3 objectives. It's pretty good.
Mm-hmm. I actually like one that's not going to be widely played just because of where my brain lives a lot of times, and that's Malog. So there's a new objective in here called Beyond Mortal. And this says, hybrid. Score this in an end phase if a friendly fighter has 4 or more wound tokens. See Malog, he wants to get damage to inspire. Or a surviving friendly fighter has a move and or wounds characteristic of 8 or more. So you just put 1 health upgrade on him and boom, you score it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
I want to point out the universal upgrade of lethal snares, where once again it's reaction at the end of the end after this fighter's card ends with, or oh my lord, flip that, strike it, reverse it. Reaction after this fighter ends a push or move action in a hex that contains a feature token, or is placed in a hex that contains a feature token. Flip that token.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So.
Yep.
In this very objective-focused meta, that's a very good card.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think if you start to see this playstyle come out more and more, because that's 2 cards in here where we're flipping tokens, it's going to force some of the other potent warbands to run these cards, which take space in their deck. So.
Yep.
And I'm sure at some point we'll see a objective that rewards you for flipping a token.
Yeah.
So
that would be swiggity sweet.
So we ready to move on to that gift pack, yo?
Yeah, let's do it. So I just want to say that I'm really glad that the alt art keys cards that I won at Nova are usable again.
Yes. Do they have the cursed key on them?
They don't, but that's okay. Everyone will know that they're the cursed key. Or I just won't play the cursed key related objectives. Anyway, so the gift pack. Let's talk about what's in it. So you get a sweet play mat.
It's cardboard.
It is cardboard.
Cardstock.
But I mean,
we're used to that anyway.
Well, the ones that you've gotten from Grand Clashes in the past have been cardstock.
Yep.
And so to be completely honest, I think that my favorite layout is still the original Shadespire one. And that's because it has a space for spent and unspent glory.
Yes.
But something that is worth noting, especially for me, because my token management in this game is awful.
Yes.
Is that on the Shadespire mat, I usually just end up with a pile of glory tokens.
Mm-hmm.
And this mat has like kind of little, they're not cutouts, but it's like part of a glory token printed on the
top.
On the top, and it's 10 across.
10 across.
So it gives you a space to kind of line up your glory in an organized fashion, and then you could just flip it as you spend it like normal people. Instead of just having piles of glory tokens that are happenstance and everywhere. And
you don't put your glory in your pile anyway, so what difference does it make?
That's true, yeah. But to make room for that, this one has room for round counters. And it includes those round counters as well. So you get this mat.
And they're metal.
3 round counters. Are they metal or?
They're metal.
Oh, cool.
Yep.
So they've got some weight to them. That's exciting. Good to know. And then it comes with 32 cards. So 12 objectives, 10 power, and 10. 20 power. So 10 gambits and 10 upgrades.
So I think before we move on to that, like Jared and I use our Shadespire mats all the time, and I actually prefer the cardstock one over like a neoprene mat, only because it fits into my box with my boards, right? And it's right there. And then the reason I'm still using that one is because it has a place for unscored objective cards.
Yep.
Yes.
Like, and I think during the game, it is really important to differentiate what you scored and what you didn't score. So,
And it's very important if you're playing certain warbands now, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, Lady Harrow, I always ask every time I play somebody, I'm like, how many objectives did you score? Because they have a card called Dominion of Death, and if you score more objectives than your opponent, then you score 3 glory.
Yep.
Which is just awesome.
Yeah,
So,
that's cool.
having a nice organized way to keep track of those scored and unscored cards is really good for your opponents as much as it is for you.
Yeah. Yep.
And then,
that's a good point.
Yeah, very, very good point. And then we'll get into what has blown the community up, and that is the cards.
Cards. So
I'll just say this before you guys can talk about the cards themselves. I think that it's more important for the Underworlds community at large. Like, yes, I understand that, like, voicing your opinion on decision makings from GW and their business model, like, everyone likes that voice, but our community is too small to continue to beat a dead horse. Like, just say your one piece and move on, but you have to look at it from I'm a brand new player and I'm going to these Facebook groups of, like, Underworlds and Underworlds here, and I'm looking at this ultimate competitive miniatures game, and my whole feed of 15 posts are like, this is blank, blankety blank stupid, is not, in my opinion, what we will need to put out into the world. So that's my public service announcement.
Well said. Soapbox moment by Jason Tabled New Murray.
Terrible.
And I agree.
Just kidding.
Yeah. So the gift pack comes with 32 cards, universal cards, 12 objectives, and then 20 power cards. And some of these are repeats from Shadespire. So cards that were previously rotated out are no longer rotated out. And
it's the objective play starter kit is what it is.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah. So the things that came back,
Keys and tax supremacy.
Keys and all the tax supremacies. Victorious Duel came back, and that's if your leader takes out another leader.
Magor is smiling.
Yep.
And so is Mollog.
Plan to standard. So if your leader is holding an objective, and you score 1 glory in an end phase. If you're holding an objective in enemy territory, cover ground. Reworded. So score this immediately after a friendly fighter makes a move action in which they enter 6 or more hexes. So this does not prevent the zigzag and really only end up 1 hex away from where you started. But what it does prevent is
Fenway Crystal.
Fenway Crystal and Inescapable Vengeance, which is the Briar Queen upgrade that lets her teleport. So,
but I'm still going to zigzag and move 1 space, but enter 6 different hexes.
Absolutely. 100%. Yes. That's what I'm going to do. I may even move 8 hexes if I can get there, but because it's 6 or more. So that's it. Yeah. Tax Supremacy 1, 2, Tax Supremacy 3, 4. Those are going to be big for Thorns, for Gits. Could be useful depending on how you're playing Grimwatch, how you're playing Despoilers. Jason, are we going to see the skeletons come back?
You may see them this week.
Nice.
I do think that you'll see potentially people running Victorious Duel and the goblins, the new goblins.
Oh, yeah, I could see that. Yeah, Rippa taking another leader out.
Yep.
I could see that. And then, so as far as power cards go, things that came back, Daylight Robbery. So roll a dice on a hammer or a crit. You get to steal 1 unspent glory from your opponent. Distraction, which is huge. Choose one enemy fighter and push them 1 hex. Yeah. So
the next one I really like, which is new.
Oh, the forward planning.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, choose 1 friendly fighter with no charge tokens. Give that fighter 1 charge token and 1 upgrade. Oh, so it's ready. No. Spoils the battle.
Spoils the battle,
but with different.
But a charge token.
Yep.
Cost, which
but
is
it's good for you.
The Wild Hunt, yeah.
Yeah. Because you're looking for those charge tokens to inspire.
That's true. Yeah, because it could give you Oh, yeah, because it doesn't say with no move or charge token. It just says with no
No.
charge
Yeah.
tokens.
Yeah.
Nice. So you could give an upgrade and an inspire. Mischievous Spirits came back, so shuffle them objectives. Misdirection, no time, shut down that power phase.
It's a good card. It's
And
an
then,
underrated card.
Yep. And then we get to the card.
No, just skip it.
Skipping it. Cool.
Spectral Wings.
Spectral Wings. So +2 move to the first fighter to make a move action in the next activation. Hey, what's up, Cover Ground, for basically everybody but Stormcast. And Shard Collar. So this is one that came back. So at the beginning of each action phase, you can pick one objective held by this fighter and one other objective, then place each objective you picked in the hex that contained the other objective. So it lets you swap out objectives.
I hate the wording on it, but it's fine.
Yeah. Well, the wording on it has changed.
It has, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
the hard thing with Shard Color, and that card was played back in season 1. The hard thing is like if it
You have
comes
to
out
get it
late
out
game,
early.
if it comes out late game, you only get to use it once. So.
Yeah. But it's good for keys.
It is.
Yep.
Spect Wings.
I like Grim Tenacity too, which is I think a new one. This fighter cannot be driven back. It's an upgrade.
It's pretty good. So there's another one that does that, but makes you a quarry. So this is like that, but better. So there's one in here, and I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it. I think one of the things that I always struggled with the Otharis was having the space to put in the upgrades or put in the ploys to inspire them. So to inspire the Otharis, you have to heal them. So I'm wondering, harnessed power is heal one each fighter that is holding an objective. And I am reading it this time. It's each fighter, not each friendly fighter.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if there is room for a flex style Guardians deck that includes this card for the purposes of inspiration.
I think that the Guardians are still kind of jammed up on what else they need.
Yeah.
But the fact that you dictate your power step, so like Utharis, to me are objective removal warband. I think that's what they're gonna
That's
live
their new
in.
job. Yep.
But you can, let's say you move Galhan onto an objective turn 1, right? And that's in your territory, and you're just gonna sit on that one because you want to score Lamentary.
Right.
And then turn 2, you move the Ithari onto the other one to try to blow it up. You can actually play this first
And then blow it up.
and they both inspire and then blow it up.
Yeah.
Or you move you
put Skaith on there probably. I think
Yeah.
he's the one that benefits the most from upgrade from inspiring. So
Yep.
to go to
Scathael.
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 That's right. I forgot how to pronounce his name. I appreciate the correction.
You're welcome.
Well, an onslang going to 2 dodge is not bad, but no, I think you make a good point, Jason. I think that their deck is already pretty crowded anyway, and removal is.
I think that's their role now.
Yeah.
It's still a good add because without healing potion in there,
Yeah, it's a good card.
Yeah.
still a nice add back. How much will be used? Who knows?
Yeah.
Well, and the thing to remember too is there's opportunity, even if somebody's on an objective, for you still to use this, because if somebody's at max health, it's not going to help them. It'll still help you, but it won't help them. So that's a good thing to remember too. So if you have 3 objectives in your territory, right, there's an opportunity for you to score potentially something, temporary victory, and then boom, harness power. Done.
Yeah.
And you've got 3 inspired fighters and 2 glory.
One of the other new ones, Jealous Defense, that one, it's going to be really.
I like that one a lot.
To put it in your deck, you're going to have a ranged fighter, otherwise it becomes very difficult to pull it off.
Right.
But it's very much with Gurzag. Let's say if I did it, I move to an objective token, and then in my power step I place this and choose him because he doesn't have a charge token, he has a move token, and I make an attack action. or you put it kind of like on Yathari and she's center board, and you can like
turret a little bit.
Turret, yeah. Like I really like.
I think
that
you've got a good combo potentially too with shifting reflection in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So where you switch your positions, like what you did to me the other day, Jared or Jason, like where we swapped places, right? You could have just immediately attacked with this instead of having to use an activation, which I think is big.
It's powerful because it gives you a free tack action with the restrictions that we needed, right? Like you got to be holding the objective. Oh, and you have to have no charge tokens.
Right. It's not ready for action. It's not no time, or not no time, frozen in time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then there's also shenanigans that you can get into with like, using Restless Prize and stuff like that to maneuver an objective to where you want it to be, and then doing this. So
that's true. Or using Mischievous Spirits to do the same thing.
Yeah.
So even though the cards are reprints, and there's definitely, like, for the price tag sentiment out there, I still think that from a standpoint of like a new player coming in, and even me, like, there's enough in here where I'm going to go out and buy it, and I will get use out of it.
Yeah.
The real upheaval is that one card, and I guess we could talk about it now.
No, don't even bother.
Okay.
People like.
Well, yeah. People. It's so
rebound is coming back.
Yep.
Get over it. Yes, we'll have to deal with it for 2 more years. Blah blah blah. It's a 33% chance to your day. Whatever.
Wow.
Whoa.
Kid-friendly show.
Yep. Time note. Way to go.
Squeaky squeaky.
It'll be in there. What's going to be funny is that's what people are going to be hearing. They're going to be like, wait, why is it squeaking? Why are they saying squeaky squeaky? Yep.
Yeah. So.
Guardian Glaive.
I like that card.
2 range, 2 furies, 2 damage. Reroll any number of attack dice if this fighter is holding an objective.
Yeah, I like that card.
Yeah. Pairs well with the one. No, with one that Jason just mentioned, Jealous Defense.
Yeah.
It does. Yeah.
So you get on an objective, you equip this upgrade, and then you play Jealous Defense.
Mm-hmm.
It actually is really nice for Jealous Defense because it's range 2.
It's also a good card for the wolves because they can get to an objective that's 2 hexes away from something and then potentially smack somebody with that and then bite somebody that's right next to the objective.
True.
Yep.
Although if I'm reading into the cards too much, the witch elves or whatever they're called that are coming out, that's 2 cards in this pack that have their pictures on them that are focused around objectives.
Yep.
That's true.
Might be reading too much into it.
Well, the Guardian Glaive is not witch elves.
Oh, that's not?
No, that's
It's a Wild Hunt guy.
That's Altheian.
Oh.
Yeah.
What does he need that for then?
No, I think that's the archer.
No. I thought it was a witch elf.
No.
But I feel better now.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm buying both. I've pre-ordered Rippa's Snarlfangs and the gift pack. Trace, you?
How about both?
Yeah, Jason. Of course you did.
Of course.
Mr. Collector.
Yeah.
How about both? Just because I like the new card art on the new ones. The wording's cleaned up.
Right.
It's way easier to deal with. So
yeah, I think having the correct wording is going to be important for competitive events and stuff.
Correct.
Too. So
Yep.
Cool.
And then plus the bonus cards you get. Yep. And we all like those dashboards anyway. So it was a no-brainer for me.
I think it's a good thing too for a new player because it gives you a way to organize your cards. Because I think I remember the first time I played, I'm like, wait, where do I put everything?
And people think you guys thought I was joking, but it seriously is like the objective play starter kit. Like
with the tax supremacies in there and
rebound
and rebound and
like it's got
mischievous
some good
spirits
stuff.
and yeah.
So if you buy, like if you're on the outside looking in and you haven't purchased all your stuff yet and you're still like bumming boards and stuff from people, buy Grimwatch and buy this and you're good to go. Like,
yeah, that's true.
I mean, not for high level play obviously, but to get started and get a grasp on like how those warbands play, I think that's a great starting spot, and you're $65 in. So
that's a good point.
I would have liked to see a board with it, if I'm being honest, like an actual board, because like given that they're pairing it with Dreadfane, like the Champions of Dreadfane, it would have been really nice. Like I pick up those 2 boxes, I grab this like for $60 or $70 for Christmas, and now someone's in the game without having to buy like a starter set, right?
Yeah.
Like So.
Yep. No, that's fair.
But it's all good. I already pre-order it. I'll get it this week. They'll take my money. It'll be fine.
Yep. Cool. All right. Well, take a break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about growing the community.
Growing the community. Woohoo!
Woo! Woo!
So this segment, it's all about growing the community. As we laid out last episode, the team here is committed to growing Underworlds in the Raleigh area, and we've been talking about it amongst ourselves for a long time, and that's setting up little meetup events and traveling out and trying to spark up the greater community here to grow our player base. And we had our first meetup last week Thursday. Was at the Gamers Armory, which is a different shop than we normally play at. It was on a Thursday night, as that is what the community said would be the most availability for everyone. We had 4 players show up, so not a huge turnout for our first one, given that 3 of us were there, but we had 4 players play. And then we did have, Jack, a listener, stop by and say hello and play some Warcry. So I wouldn't call it a full wash. We had Matt from Crit Def Podcasts was up in the area, and he came out and played some games with us. So really, really happy with it. Like, whether it's 1 or 2 new players into the scene or just getting people out, I'll take it as a victory. And, I appreciate you guys showing up and rolling some dice, and Jared breaking my models, and it was a good time.
Yeah, happy. Anytime you need something broken, you just let me know, man.
Well, I think it's just important to note too that we had like some people who had some life stuff happen too. So we had 2 other people that were planning on coming, and then they last minute weren't able to show, which is good. Like, the interest was there, which is what's important to us. So
yes, yeah, and just even at the shop, getting the glances and people stopping and looking at stuff. Mm-hmm. That's what it's about, is making sure that people know that the game is out there. There is a healthy community in the Raleigh-Durham area, and just getting together to play some games. And it, on a personal note, it worked out really well. So that was my first dipping of the toes with balancing my goal of growing this community with my wife, Sarah. That took a lot of talking and stating of intent and how that affect, the family and home life, because really, as we've communicated, I get basically 2 nights a month where I get that pass to go out there and play with my miniature toys, because I have this addictive personality when it comes to plastic crack, and I would like to be out there like a lot more than twice. But Sarah and I sat down and we talked about it and said, hey, this is kind of like what I want to do, which means what is the impact to my family? And that means that it's not a set schedule, which is something that can be a challenge at times. Like she knows that, every other Tuesday I'm going away. Well, now it's not going to be every other Tuesday. It's going to be a Tuesday and then a Thursday, or Tuesday and a Friday. So, we worked through that really, really well. She was very supportive. So thank you, Sarah, and for dealing with my addictions. And it worked so well that I'm pleased to announce we're going to do another one next month. So kind of a holiday bash, and we're going to get out to the Durham area. So, I'll make a post here, hopefully later tonight as it's half typed, of the meetup at Atomic Empire in Durham on December 12th, which is also a Thursday. And, the reason I'm excited for this one, it's going to be the same thing. Just bring your stuff. Don't bring your stuff. Just come hang out. I will have a whole bunch of painted models by this time.
Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you will.
So you will be able to try basically anything and everything that you'd want in fashion. And Atomic Empire sells beer. So what better way to celebrate a holiday month by having a beer and rolling very special dice. So
Yep.
No, sounds good. I'm a fan.
Proprietary dice and booze.
Yes, it's I'm excited about it, guys, and I really appreciate you guys coming along on this adventure. It's it's something to get out there and just meet different people and play against different people, and I hope it takes off. I know not everyone's. A lot of people that organize events, their feedback are just pick one place and keep it to one place on one day. But I really want to try to unite all these little fragmented groups within Raleigh, because there are a lot of people out here that play it, but they're all broken up into like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9
little pockets.
Pockets, yeah. So,
well, and it's something that you, at least you and I, have talked about quite a bit, which is trying to do the traveling roadshow, right? Where we kind of go to the people, have games, we'll travel.
Yeah.
Because not everybody wants to come to Durham. We've talked about going to Fayetteville. We've talked about going to even as far as like Greensboro if we need to, just to kind of grow the overall North Carolina, South Carolina Underworlds community. Like you said, just taking all those fragmented pockets and putting them together and being like, hey, these other people exist. Go play with them.
Yeah. And talking about South Carolina, you want to give a shout out to an event that you're planning on going to?
Yeah. So a friend of the show, Brandon Huss, guy that I grew up playing games with, he's been
on the show.
He has been on the show.
Guest of the show.
Yeah, he's been on the show. He is going to be running an event at that computer store in South Carolina, in Columbia. And it's on December 21st. So if any of you guys that are listening want to go, he's got a Facebook page. They've got a Underworlds in South Carolina page, and he's also posted the event on the Underworlds NC page as well. And just click interested or going or whatever you want to. He'd love to have you, and we'd love to have as many people as we can go to that event. And it will be a new quarter kit, which will be one of the kits that has the code for the potential Grandmaster's entry.
The code.
So live by the code. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm going to be going. I've talked to Jason about it, and he may be going. Depending on mining family and childcare and stuff like that. It's
90% certain that I'll go. It really just comes down to, can I get a babysitter, because it is a weekend where Sarah works. So
then we can see if Jason will beat me.
Oh, trash talking.
He'll have two people in his pocket.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, so I'm excited. I think it's going to be a good event, and if nothing else, we'll get to go down and hang out with Brandon, and he's a good player, and I know that some of his friends from my hometown that I grew up in, Hank and his son, are going to be coming. So there are some other players from those pockets that we talked about, right, that are going to come together, and we'll see how it goes. So I'm excited.
I'm more excited to play against Brandon's kids, right? Like the wacky combos that they're pulling off, and I know they're down there, and they're kind of like Underworlds lore, like his son pulling off those shenanigans. Can't wait to sit across the table from him.
Yep. And just having played a lot of games with Brandon over the years, like Brandon's just a smart dude, and so that's not surprising to me that those combos are rubbing off on the kids. So
sweet. Looking forward to that event. And then something else I'm excited.
I know.
Like Jared, you've been growing the community, but in a kind of different way. You did mention it once before on how a different community grows this way. But what have you been doing with Underworlds?
Yeah, so just trying to do a slow burn. I've got I think 3 guys. Yeah, it's three different.
You think 3 guys?
I think well, I don't know how interested one of them. 2 for sure are interested. So, but I've gotten 3 different coworkers. I've just kept the Dreadfane box in my car, with all of the cards, and so at lunch, or when we all get there for work, I'll be like, hey, I've got the box if anybody wants to do a luncheon game. So I've done 3 separate rounds of getting my coworkers to play Dreadfane during lunch. And mostly it's been just Dreadfane selfishly on my part, because I haven't wanted to deconstruct my decks to put the starter decks for Skates Wild Hunt and Gashrax to Spoilers together. But I've got all that set up now too. So like all of the starter decks are fully sleeved and ready to go. So like if they want to play those later. But it's been fun. It's been interesting to watch people learn to play the game like in like fits and starts, because we get basically 2 activation phases done in a lunchtime, as they're reading through cards and questioning and asking and figuring things out. But it's been fun. And so I mean, I think the next step is I'm going to let them know that we'll be doing a thing at Atomic, and that's going to be easier for them. Most of my coworkers live a lot closer to Atomic. The work office is maybe 8 minutes from Atomic Empire. So it'll be an easy invite to throw out. So, I'll keep you guys posted, but I mean, it's been fun.
Awesome. What do you like? Do you think that Dreadfane's easier to teach, or would it have just been easier to teach them the full game?
Well, so I'm not doing the Dreadfane rules. So I'm not doing like the
double glory,
for kills, and I'm not doing the weird like random things. So the only aspect of the game that they aren't getting is deck construction, and then board selection and objective placement. But I feel like I still let them do board selection, but it's not exactly the same, because they don't get to choose the alignment and they don't get to choose where objectives go. But I think that'll be kind of a natural next step. I think right now it's figuring out like, how is this game played? And wait, I can do that, or I guess I should have done this. Like when we played last week, the guy that
those aha moments happen is awesome.
yeah. Watching my coworker play the Condemners and letting him deploy them back, and then realize, no, I need to just get in the ghost's face.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I'm not going to be able to do any of my objectives. Has been interesting, but it's been good, and I'm excited to see it continue, and hopefully, we'll get to add 1 or 2 or 3 more people to the local scene.
Yeah, it'd be awesome, and well, good. Yeah. So just to plug the meetup again, December 12th at Atomic Empire. Plan on being there before 6, but we'll start around 6. Atomic's open to 11, and also, like I said, beer will be there, as well as with being holiday, we may have some giveaways at the event as well. So I am waiting on an order of dice trays, and then I may have procured additional Warband box through my many travels and hobby purchases. So
nice.
So
cool.
Awesome. that's growing the community. That's where we stand. We'll take a break and continue this long journey through catching up.
And we're back. Alrighty, guys. Have you said your prayers to the Holy Emperor of Mankind? Because if you haven't, there's a bunch of bob-cut women coming to get you.
On their floating
On their
pulpits
fancy
with
floating
underslung heavy
Yes.
flamers.
Yes, on their bird eagle dais floating thing. Anyway, so Sisters of Battle are coming. Adepta Sororitas, as they're so now coined. It's a big thing. It's a big event for all the 40K community. And that's because those models have not been touched in like 20 years. Give or take a few. So anybody who's listening to this that's like a giant Sisters fan, please don't like come and destroy me. So I just think this is like a really momentous moment, right? What do you guys think about the sculpts? What do you guys think about the army box? This is the return of the army box too.
That's true. Yeah, with the army box that comes with the codex, and you get everything that you need to play that army.
Yep.
Other than the main rulebook in the box. Yeah. No, I mean, the sculpts are incredible. I haven't seen one that I did not like. And I'm not sure that I can say that for any other range.
I mean, they're impressive. I've never been intrigued or attracted to playing Sisters of Battle just because I just don't like the play style, I don't think.
Well, you're also a dirty heretic, so.
Well, I'm just hoping, somebody comes and cleanses me. So, I just, it's the biggest. Which is something that we've not really seen. Like, we've had bits and pieces come out. Like, we've had current models that have been supplemented with new models. Like, Chaos Space Marines was a pretty big supplement, but it was still just a supplement, right? A couple years ago, we got all the Dinobots, as everybody started calling them, right? And stuff like that. But this is the first one where it's been like from ground up remodel all the way through.
Yeah.
And I don't count Saint Celestine. Saint Celestine was being used in soup armies. Yeah. So she's like, she is the prototype, right? But all these models share likeness with her, but they have so much more character in themselves. Like, Jason, what do you think on the new models?
Yeah, for me, I love them, and it's really twofold. So, GW has always pushed the boundary with modeling and sculpts, but to me, it's been more on the AOS side. Like I have a full new brand new model Primaris Marine army, but like it's still, I wouldn't say they pushed it to the point of like, oh my goodness, this model is like just leaps and bounds different than the old Space Marine. I think with the Sisters, because this current or previous model range for Sisters was so limited, that this just goes above and beyond. You see the flowing robes, you see the hair, like the different weapons and like the iterations to those different weapons, from like just little changes to the way the flamers are lined up to the war nuns, because I don't know what they're called, but those ladies that are all look like nuns are amazing. And like the over the top grandiose things from their vehicles with the stained glass windows. But the more important thing to me is like, this is something that I could see my daughter in, 7 years gravitating towards, and something that like has staying power. Like, I think it's very important to have these style of armies in our hobby. Like it empowers, women, and it's something that they can identify with, and like I really appreciate them, taking the time. Like this is a lot of work to do all of these sculpts, and they're going to be beautiful armies on the table. So
I just can't wait to see what some of the really high level army painters do with them. I think they're going to be gorgeous armies. But to kind of touch on one thing that I mentioned a second ago, which is the return of the army box. So anybody who's played in this, done this hobby for a long period of time remembers some of those army box deals that you used to be able to get. So it was very similar style to this, where you would get your book and you'd get your models, like a limited range of models, right? And then you would usually end up getting something extra. So with this release, you get a limited edition codex that only is going to come in this one, right? So they'll probably release a limited edition book when they release the book itself, but this will be a different cover. And then it's also going to be all the cards that you need to play it. So your data cards, and I'm assuming all your prayers and stuff like that are going to be in there too. And then the thing that they so lovingly coin as miracle dice are the most vanilla dice you've ever seen in your life. Like there's no special symbols on them, nothing. They're just plain white dice. I am almost positive that they're the same plain white dice that you used to get in the Warhammer Fantasy Battles game a million years ago. But the return of that is kind of important because that style of box was very popular for a while, and I'm hoping that this is kind of a starting point for us to do that again, right? Where if you have a new codex or a new army, like if it's a brand new release, this is something that they can do to be like, everything you need to play is right here. And what they used to do a long time ago was like, especially the ones that I remember the most are the Warhammer Fantasy ones, because they would usually give you like a special model that was in there, right? So for a lot of those armies, it was like your battle standard bearer. That was the only way you could really get your battle standard bearer model, which was a really important hero in fantasy. So I'm just excited to see that return of that bundle box, even if it is like push fit models or, single monopose models. It's still a great starting point for anybody who's starting the game. So, yeah.
Great.
So with that, also in the same release window, is Psychic Awakening.
I'm awoke.
We're about to all be woke. So this is, at least for myself, and I'll keep my feelings to the end. So Jared, what are your thoughts on Psychic Awakening?
So, we've touched on this before when we talked about Vigilus. It's been interesting and exciting to see them start to push the setting, where they're making changes, lasting changes to the setting. The fact that Marnius Calgar crossed the Primaris Rubicon, the fact that Corsair Khan and Tigurius have crossed the Primaris Rubicon. That's a change to the setting. It firmly cements the games that are occurring in a specific time, which is not something that we've seen come from Games Workshop in a long time. So they've had their global campaigns in the past where, you were taking part of a specific battle, but it was only like for the period of that campaign. It wasn't like the whole setting was shifted. So it's been cool to see that, and it's been cool to see, kind of those shifts in settings come about because of the work that the sculptors are doing. So we've talked before in the past how the sculptors, the design, like the model art studio team creates the models, and then the rules and background writers come up with, the rules in the background for anything that's new, or they make adjustments for, anything that has changed or shifted. So it's been interesting to see the way that they've taken this direction. They've taken these new models and created, shifts in the setting from it. So I think that one of the things that stood out for us from Vigilus and is continuing to stand out from the Psychic Awakening is that even though the setting is shifting, there's still like very much a status quo that's being maintained. And I personally find that a little off-putting. Like, it would be nice, after the events of, what did they call not the end times. What did they call it at the end of 7th? When Gilliman came back and Ennead and all that.
Oh, you're talking about Fall of Cadia.
Yeah, those
stuff
books.
like that.
What was that thing called?
Oh, I'm being a bad lore nerd right now.
Yeah, we all are. Clearly, Jason does not remember. But the Jason doesn't read. That's right.
I don't read. I mean,
yeah. Why would you know? Anyway, so like it really felt like that they were shifting things, right? And then when the start of 8th happened, the Cicatrix Maledictum, and then you have the Imperium Nihilus. So there's this whole part of the Imperium that's cut off, but since they've done that, it doesn't feel like anything has changed, and that's beginning to look like the way that they're doing with Psychic Awakening, and I don't know if
Gathering Storm,
thank you. I wonder how much of that is my expectation for what I think they should be doing versus, what actually makes sense for them to be doing. But, it's been interesting to see them release new rules and update models and update rules for things in this way.
But isn't that, I think, so it goes back to me for, like, 40K the game was always meant to play the story, where, like, it's not like Horus Heresy where you're getting the story in with books and then you're moving forward, and because it's like known. Like 40K was always to give you a setting and then you play the games to develop your own story. And I think that sometimes we lose that, like, right? Like we're so much like, okay, now you've moved past point X and like we're in this setting. We want more. We want, how does the story end, or how does the story progress? And really at the essence of 40K is for us to determine on the tabletop. And I do think that we're losing that way just a little bit because the game has switched so much to, like, this is not like hateful towards the competitive scene, but it's moved so much to like a competitive style of game where you know what you're getting into when you sit across the table, and away from that RPG storytelling element that the game was originally designed for. So it's like it's the two genres again, and you go back to 6th and 5th where like there were two distinct. When I say distinct, like we have different ways of playing now, but you were either like a lore person or you were like a competitive person, like, and you just did not intermix. Now we've come to this great point where everyone's kind of together because we've all agreed to play the game like a game, but then you lose these elements. Like the Psychic Awakening is to give you a planet that has this going on so you can determine what's going on in your own little world. But it is very frustrating that we keep getting these books and spending money, and it's like, tell me something, like anything. I don't want to just like, oh, he got a flesh wound and he was taken back to the transport and he'll heal and fight another day. Like, do something.
Yeah.
Well, so it's interesting that you say that. So there's one little thing that I noticed today, which is, what if you just couldn't read that part?
Oh, yeah.
So
what do you mean, Trace?
So there's a new thing that GW did with this particular book that I just find it's kind of insulting a little bit. So the collector's edition of this book of Psychic Awakening,
the Faith and Fury one.
Yes. So Faith and Fury the collector's edition has 16 extra pages of lore in it. Whereas if you purchase that book for the normal price without the special cover, you won't get to read that part. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to be like groundbreaking, changing 16 pages, but that's content that, yes, you're paying more for.
It's behind a paywall.
But it's behind a paywall. And that's infuriating for somebody who wants to read the stuff, but like this book's going to be invalid in a year and a half. Like, I'm not paying $80 for that book.
Yeah. That's a good point.
And, you know, and something to even further that, let's think about what precedent this starts, right? If you do this in addition to the fact that let's say you're starting Space Marines, okay? You need the core rulebook, you need Codex Space Marines, you need, if you're going to play a first founding chapter of a Space Marines, you need whatever supplement that is. So if you're going to play White Scars, Ultramarines, Iron Hands, blah, 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 blah. You need another book. And now, something that we've found out about this book is that they basically have hid another thing behind a paywall, which is more stratagems and more litanies for you.
Yeah.
For everybody.
Don't forget about Visualist is still out there too that you'll need.
Well, and
in certain builds. You
don't necessarily need Vigilus, so I'm kind of excluding that. Like those formations that they had in there, which they are formations, those stratagems that unlocked those abilities, those are more of like, those are a bonus. You don't really need those because a lot of those things got pushed over into the Codex as it is. Mm-hmm. Yep. So at full retail value, you need your Codex, which is $40. You need your supplement, which is $30, and then you need your Psychic Awakening book, which is another $40. So to play Space Marines, just for the rules for Space Marines, you're looking at $110 retail, which is crazy.
It is, and I've never had a problem with it, right? Like when we were in 7th, there were these paywalls where if you bought, Formation X, you got a special formation rule set, and that bothered the heck out of me because it's like I have to collect it all. The reason that this the point that you're driving home is like over $100 worth of books. I got a whole backpack back full of books, but for me, the way that we're kind of going back to our casual playing 40K, it's hard for me to get bought back in because I'm a type of consumer that needs to know everything. And there's just so much out there now that I cannot consume that amount of information to know everything, let alone just know my Space Marines. Like, it's like I have to know 5 books. And then on top of it, whatever army I'm fighting against, I probably need to know like 3 books. And with Space Marines in particular, like you just sold me this codex of like, hey, we consolidated everything into this codex. And we're going to give you a supplement to expand upon it. Okay, fine. That's fine. Like I was happy with that. But then like you're going to give me it's really going to be 1 page or 3 pages in this book of like additionals. Like just make it the Black Templar supplement. Like don't give me this like little hidden Space Marine stuff so I have to buy that too, because you want to know what I am going to buy, because the next time Trace and I get together to play, I want to make sure that I can play with a special chaplain. It's just the way I'm built. Like sucks.
Well,
must be nice.
And I get that, and I understand that, but the thing that I want people to realize is like if you're a completionist and you want all the story, let's say that you miss out, that you didn't realize that special edition codex had 16 more pages of fluff in it. you find out after the fact. Like, how are you gonna feel? You're gonna be pissed, right?
Yeah.
It disappoints me because and this will lead me to the next point that we're going to talk about, which is we've already discussed how 40K is a setting. But the thing that what they're doing now, it almost feels like downloadable content for a video game that you have to pay for. Whereas like you can't really play the game unless you purchase all the downloadable content. And that's unfortunate. Whereas we're going to look at the other side of GW's cash cow, which is now Age of Sigmar. The thing that I think Age of Sigmar does really, really well is it lets the story dictate the new releases, which is really cool because the Ossiarch Bonereapers are a direct result of the
Necroquake.
The Necroquake. Like those beings really came into their own because of the Necroquake, which was like a big campaign that they did leading up to the Necroquake. And then because of the Necroquake, we also have endless spells, which are a really cool element to the game that now you can like purchase an extra spell that like stays on the board and does other cool stuff. Like the story is being driven forward. It's a progressive story. And you don't feel like when a new army comes along or new rules, like they tie it all together. I just feel like they've really hit the nail on the head with that, and I'm kind of disappointed that they haven't brought that to 40K a little bit.
You think that's because 40K is so large? Like it's like you're trying to feed the machine, and 40K is like it's already like at, I don't want to say at capacity, but it is like huge. And Age of Sigmar is still kind of in its toddler phase. Like it's still, there's content there, but it's not like, I mean, 40K with all the armies and all the lore, and it's like, how do you keep injecting like sales into that beast? Like you just,
I just think you have to just not be afraid. Like that's my big thing. Like it's your IP, it's your big IP. But the people that really love that game are always going to love that game. And we've talked about it before about how it is, Jared just said it. It gets a little tiring that it's always 12 minutes to midnight, right? Have something happen one way or the other. Like you can always bring it back. Like
retcons.
Yeah. You can always bring it back, or you can have it to where something else comes and brings it back. The pendulum swings the other way. I just think that it gets a little stale, and that's what we were talking about the other day, which was just the staleness of the game a little bit. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so the staleness of the game is definitely there, and I just fear that being a filthy casual now for 40K, it's a little bit not as rewarding, because when I sit down at the table, like I know that it's going to be a 4-hour adventure, but I have to there's a lot of work to get through the rules because there's so much of it. And it's just disappointing. And then to your point where it's stale, like the rule set, although it is the best rule set we've ever had for 40K, and I'm not taking away from, there are so many people playing 40K. It is awesome to walk into any shop and see 10, 12 people playing it on the normal game nights. It is awesome. But it's kind of boring. Now that we're so into Underworlds and, played Warcry and played all these kind of quote unquote modern systems, it really drags out for me. It's really tough, and it's disappointing because with the new Space Marine transports, I'm so jazzed. Like, I've always wanted a Tau army, and I had this like mechanized infantry. Like, oh, I'm gonna do Devilfish, and we're gonna get out, and we're just gonna blast you off the board. It's gonna be awesome. I've never done it or it never worked. Now with the new transport, like I'm like jazzed. Like I want to get my Crimson Fist, and I want to get in the Impulsor, and I want to go across the board, and I want them to get out, and I want them to be like Marines and just fight their way through, and that sounds amazing. And then you accompany that with the 16 extra pages of lore with like, the setting being so flavorful. And then I get out there and I'm just like, okay, Jared, tell me what to do. Like,
yeah. How many dice do I need to roll? Yeah.
Just tell me how many you need to roll. How many do I need to pick up now? Yeah. Yep. I mean, and that's just it's an older system. The I go you go system it's old, and we all love it and we'll play it, but it's not. I think at one point in our lives, and I know that this existed because we stood by it, that we at one point we were like, nope, it's the greatest system ever. And I just, at this point, having, like you said, Jason, played more modern games with, balanced activations and resources that you have to manage and stuff like that, it makes it feel a little clunky, even in the current stage. And that's a sad thing because we all love the setting and we love the rules, but it just doesn't feel quite as fulfilling as it did at one point, So.
And we just don't have 4 hours to invest. Like, we have 4 hours to invest. We choose not to invest 4 hours into a single game.
Right.
But the thing is that like that 4 hours is invested like it's just me and you, Jason, or it's just me and you, Jared. Whereas if we play Underworlds or if we play Warcry, now we're like, oh, I can get a game in with Jason and I can get a game in with Jared, like,
and 3 other people.
And Danny.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Danny doesn't play Underworlds.
And the depth is still there. Like that was always my thing for 40K. It was like, oh, but the depth and the story and then this, and I know your rule and you're going to try to do that, and it's more a shift in my life than it is just with 40K. I completely understand that. But darn it, I want it back. Like I'm sitting here right now and it's like, oh man, we could set up this huge like Bastion world with all these things, and Jared's Tyranids could come running at me and I can get out and I can shoot, and and we'll do that because we still have the campaign going on. But like when we get in there, once it's all set up, after it takes us 40 minutes to get there, it's like, okay, so like what's going on with the family? What's going on with the kids? And what's this? And like 40 minutes later, we're done talking. It's like, how am I going to finish this game? It's going to take me 4 hours because I have to read all these rules.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so.
I think that's the thing for me, is that just being out of practice and not playing it a ton.
Yep.
It's like, I think that's what slows us down. And I remember playing at Nova, when we were in the narrative campaign, I just took whatever they said. Like, oh, they have this gun and it does this and it does that. And I'm like, cool, sounds great. Let's just roll your dice. Let's see what happens. Like,
I think there was several times, and we weren't, and one of the people that we played against is listening to this show, I'm sure. But we at one point we were both like, just tell us what we need to roll, man. Like, not in any kind of like passive aggressive way, but just like,
well, like it was like we trust you. Like, we know you're not cheating, so just
roll it up.
Yeah, roll it up. I mean, tell us what you're doing. I'm shooting you with my plasma gun or whatever, but like, don't.
And
but like, but we can't do that. Like, I can't know exactly what Jason's units do anymore because I don't play as often anymore. Yes. And there's that part of me that used to know that, and now when I play, there's the small part of me that wants to know, that wants Jason. Like, I feel like I should know it, and then because I don't know it, and he's telling me what it is, there's that dissonance. That dissonance used to mean disagreement, where I thought it meant one thing and he thought it meant another, and I was usually wrong. But now what it means is that he knows what it does and I don't know what it does. And so it's like, at this point, I should just be like, yeah, great, you're shooting me with your assault carbines and it's under the tactical doctrine, so you get to shoot 18 times and you're at -1 AP and you're doing 2 damage. Great, whatever, sounds great.
Yeah, and one thing to note too is, we talk a lot about like card combos and stuff, and those things all exist in 40K. I know, because that's where my brain went.
Right.
The difference is that it requires more effort, more money, more time to do those things in that game than it does to do it in a game that's designed to do combos.
Yep.
But that's the hook for me, right? Is exactly what you're talking about. Is like, oh, like this, that, and like that's when I was at 40K heyday. The problem is now, like, I can't get the reps in that I used to. Like, we used to play 3-4 games a weekend, right? And now I get to play 2 games a month, if that, right? Like, if something happens. And so that's 24 games a year. I can get 24 games of Underworlds in a week. Like,
yep.
So, yeah. I still love 40K. Can't wait to get the new units on the table. I approach it from a different way now that I go in hoping to be pleased, but knowing that there's probably going to be dissatisfaction at times.
Yeah.
Well, and like Jared said, and then we'll wrap up with this, a lot of that just comes from just our rusty nature of the game right now. Being smooth with it, I think we would get right back in there, and it would flow, and it would be fun. It would feel less clunky. But having wet our whistle on faster, more modern rule sets, it feels a little mechanical.
So then, without taking a break and just segueing in, so then what's the difference with Age of Sigmar? So you guys are big into Age of Sigmar, and Jared just brought a brand new army, and I understand the setting, like you've incorporated the setting into the way that they roll out this Bonereapers thing, but Jared, we're talking, like, and I want to make sure to our listeners, like, we're still like 40K, and we're still going to play 40K. We just are a little bit taken back by the push out of yet another Space Marine book on top of a Space Marine book on top of a Space Marine book. But so the Bonereapers, Jared, like, why a big scale game that's going to take us 2 to 4 hours to play, are you willing to jump into Bonereapers in Age of Sigmar?
So I think that there are some fundamental differences between Age of Sigmar and 40K, and a lot of that has to do with, like, the way that terrain works, that they're,
the stat lines.
The stat lines are the stat lines. Like, I don't need to know anything about your models for me to attack them unless they have, like, some kind of, like, crazy, mostly rare special rule, right? Like, I don't, there's no toughness to compare to my strength. My models have a hit value and a wound value and a rend value and then a damage value. And that's the extent of our interaction. Now, I mean, there's occasional stuff where, like, you might be doing a -1 to hit against me or something like that. But just at its core set, the war scrolls are simpler than the data sheets for a 40K unit.
Some of them.
Well,
most of them.
Yeah, I mean, you get some crazy abilities on some of them, but I think that just the simplified rule set for the game itself, that there are, it is more of the yes and that 8th edition leaned into, coming out of the yes but that 7th edition 40K was. So for anybody that needs an explanation there, in 7th edition, if you asked a question, can I do this? The answer was almost always yes, but, and then, a series of rules or, modifiers or whatever. And the 8th edition has moved significantly towards more of a yes and, where, if you want to do a thing, you can just do a thing. And the the way that you do that thing is pretty clearly laid out. And that, I think, started with Age of Sigmar. The thing that you don't have to deal with nearly as much in Age of Sigmar is like terrain. So there's not like, do I have cover? Do I not? There's not this question of, is it line of sight? Is it not line of sight? Like all of that is simplified. And then, I think for me personally, it's finding something that's identifiable or something that is a hook for me in the faction. So, going back to what Trace was saying earlier, the fact that the Bonereapers exist because of a change in the story setting, and for me, that's just really fascinating. And I think that's the thing that really draws me in. And I think so. That's part of it. So the simplification, like the simpler rule set, is a big part of it. I think the other thing for me is because Age of Sigmar is a newer system, it is easier for me to be in the mindset that this is a game that I am going to play a game, and not a game that I am going to play to be an expert at, to be always attempting to win. Like nobody likes to lose, right? But we always want to win. But with Age of Sigmar, because of where I'm starting it now, I think it's easier for me to just be like, no, this is just going to be a game that I play. Like I want to build these models, I want to paint these models, and I want to play games with these models. And that it be the game that it used to be, the way that I used to do hobby, the way that I used to do games, is I was significantly more interested in just collecting and painting miniatures, and the fact that a game existed around them that allowed me to do social interactions with people was just the icing on the cake. So yeah, to give a very long answer to a very short question.
So, and then in the intro you started talking about Bonereapers themselves and having elite infantry. Like, what else drew you to them?
So they exist. So Nagash created the Bonereapers early in the alliance between Nagash and Sigmar.
Nagash is the god of death, by the way.
Yes. So for anyone that isn't familiar with the Age of Sigmar lore, Nagash is the god of death. He made an alliance with Sigmar, who is basically the god of order, against chaos early in the Age of Sigmar lore. And this is where you get the Stormcast Eternals. Like that's where they came from. Is like they came around that time. They were Sigmar's elite soldiers. Well, Nagash believes that at the end of all things, all souls will belong to him. So after everything has died, all souls belong to him. Well, Sigmar has stolen souls to put in Stormcast Eternals. So that cheeses Nagash off. And then there's this whole thing, and he creates the Necroquake, which releases a bunch of like crazy Shaishan energy and throws magic out of whack. And that's why we have endless spells now. But prior to all of this, these Ossiarch legions were buried underneath civilization. And when the Necroquake happened, all of this undead death energy came out, and so they started waking up. What's really cool about them is that they're not your typical undead. So they're not the mindless skeletons. Each of the individual foot soldiers could have a conversation with you, could talk to you. Their leaders are as much diplomats as they are warriors. So they have, this whole thing set up where eventually their goal is the death of all things, but they realize that, if they want to build this vast, gorgeous empire out of bones, it's going to be better for them to slowly harvest all of the bones over time to build all of these vast necropolises than it would be for them to just try to kill everything now, because they wouldn't have enough bone to make all of the cool architecture that they want to make. So they do a bone tithe. So they would come to a village and say, okay, you have X number of days to bring us X amount of bones And if you do, then we're cool, and we'll probably just take it and move on. But if you don't, then we're going to slaughter everybody and take all your bones anyway. But they're like this weird amalgam of Necrons and Tyranid. So kind of this unliving, they've been buried under civilization. They're just now waking up. They hate life. But they're Tyranid in that their whole goal is the utter consumption of all living things. And so just kind of that amalgamation, the intelligent undead, the elite infantry. So, they have decent armor saves to begin with. And then the faction that I've chosen, because, I love dinosaurs at heart. So if Lizardmen played the way that I wanted them to play, that's what I would play. But the Petrifex elite, instead of making most of their things from fresh bones, they go on pilgrimages and they are migratory and they are looking for fossilized bones. So all of their soldiers and all of their monsters are made from fossilized bones. So they're tougher. So they have a better save. They get a +1 to their save across the entire army. And one of the things that characterizes them is that they have more monsters. And so that digs into my play style too. So it's just been interesting to see them release something that plays the way that I wanted my lizardmen to play, even though they're not lizards.
That's awesome.
So
very cool.
To throw it back at you, I know that there's been a recent announcement around the Age of Sigmar that is tickling your fancy. You want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, so I think I've hidden at it for a long time, like Slaves of Darkness, Godsworn Hunt on out of Underworlds is my favorite, both aesthetic and warband, play warband in the game. So I was excited to see Slaves of Darkness come out for Age of Sigmar. It may be the way I get into it again. They did release some new models, so the Chaos Warriors are going to get a fantastic update. And wow, talk about a classic model that they just kind of re-energized by putting some fluid motion in it. Like those Chaos Warriors look super good.
Yeah,
super good. And then one thing in Age of Sigmar that I always like is cavalry, and the new horsey men for them also look fantastic. Once again, continuing their same aesthetic, but just putting nice movement into the models. And then the leader on the dinosaur, there's a dinosaur for you.
Heck yeah, man, that thing is awesome.
Yeah. It's for me,
like it's a chaos crocodile, basically.
Yeah,
with a huge horn.
Yeah.
So all three like those new models, they just hit home and kind of what I'm looking for. But really, for me, the Slaves of Darkness come down to what we assume would be like kind of the tribes or clans that are the Warcry warbands, because they're going to incorporate those in. And that's really what I'm interested in seeing before I completely jump in. Like, I want that very, Dark Oath style of army. And if I can do that, then we'll be in, like with the Untamed Beast or the Godsworn Hunt or, the Chieftain or the Queen. Like, those style is exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm really curious to see how they work in the Warcry warbands into kind of the, whatever they call it, the clans, the factions within Slaves of Darkness. And the new, I forget, Trace, what's the new warband that's not out yet, but they look more like a Chaos Warrior style warband?
The Spire Tyrants.
Yeah, those guys look awesome.
Those are to me, those are the new reimagined Marauders.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like the true Marauders.
I would agree.
Yeah. Basically, if Jason can play a whole army of Conan the Barbarian, he can't. He wants that.
Yeah, that I want very diverse sculpts in Conan the Barbarian. You are 100% correct, and it's definitely there. And then there's always that, and then there's always Stormcast. Like, you moving to the Bonereapers, like the Stormcast just kind of creep back in, and especially with the way that my Stormcast color scheme came out, like, oh, so good. So we'll see. Like, we'll get the book this month or early next month, and I'll, it also comes down to you guys, because if I'm being honest, like, one of my hesitations is exactly what we were talking about with 40K, is like, is this a game that I want to make a monetary investment? Okay, check, I'm fine with that. But do I also want to learn a game system and spend 3 hours playing one game or 2 hours playing one game instead of playing all these mini games? But we do have a really good growing community of Age of Sigmar here in Raleigh-Durham. So, I'm curious, just like I was for Warcry.
Yep.
And then the big announcement that may have goaded Trace a little bit more.
It's hip to be square.
Trace, what are your thoughts on the Old World, the up and coming game that GW is making 3 years from now? How you feeling, buddy? How you feeling?
I've lived this story already. I played it. I've played from the, since like 4th edition fantasy. Like,
yeah.
I've lived the history of it. I don't need a retelling. It ended with my boy blowing up the world. Like,
yeah, it did.
There's a part of me that is excited about the prospect of it coming back, but it's also, this is another one of those moments where it feels a little money grabby, right? Because now they're taking all of this new interest from the Age of Sigmar community, which has grown and is very healthy, and it's far more healthy than fantasy ever was, right? Well, not ever, but far more healthy than fantasy was within the last 2 years of its existence, right? And it just feels like it feels a little manipulative on their part, because they're seeing a market in Kings of War and in A Song of Ice and Fire and stuff like that, where you're pushing around movement trays and you're having to like measure your movement very precisely. And that's exactly the way fantasy was. And now they're just going to be like, oh, well, do you want to hear about the history of Age of Sigmar? Now go do the Old World. Like, it's a little insulting, honestly.
Yeah.
So do you honestly think that it's just going to be Warhammer Fantasy rehashed?
I really do. There's a hope for me that it's in a different scale. If it's in a different scale, if it's like War Master scale, which is like basically
it's like 10 mil.
epic scale, but for fantasy.
Yeah.
That would be really cool.
That would be baller.
Yeah, it would.
Because every battle you ever read about in the Old World setting was massive. Like,
yeah,
there were no small battles. Like, it was huge battles. So if they go that route with it, and they're like, oh, the retelling in this phase, like in this space, I think I'm all for it. I'm on board. 3 years ahead of time. But if they're doing it just to try and take the market share away from companies like Mantic with Kings of War, who have taken that torch and run with it, it's just it's a little backhanded to me. Because anyway, go ahead.
But that's where I think, I personally think that's where it lives. So look at the 40K model. Like, you have, a whole bunch of lines of games. Like, you have Kill Team, which is the same scale but smaller. You have 40K, you have Apocalypse, which is the same scale but bigger. And those are, like, people forget about Apocalypse, but it is a rule set. It's a separate rule set that plays with those 3 games. Like, and then you go to Horus Heresy, and we all know the disruption that line has had, but nothing has really, or the reason why, if you haven't, go look at it. But like the scale is the same, but now that they're pushing Primaris, like the scale will be different, and they really haven't put any money behind Horus Heresy from the model range per se. There's been some releases here or there, but it's been fairly stagnant, and I don't think they see enough differentiation to like wholeheartedly invest in it. Like, and then in Age of Sigmar, they've eliminated ranges like Tomb Kings. Are you really think they're going to come back with Tomb Kings? Do you really think they're going to come back with Bretonnians? And like Bretonnians is like a staple faction of the old world, right?
Correct.
So
both
they live on,
and Bretonnians are.
Well, Bretonnians live. Bretonnians live in flesh eater courts.
Well played, sir.
In the lore, yes, but the playstyle and the models are not there.
You still charge forward knit stuff. It's the same stuff.
Yeah, but it's not. Yeah. Okay.
You have chalices and thrones, and I'm being facetious, Jared.
Yeah.
Are you?
But look at the Age of Sigmar side of the business. Is there any differentiating? You have Underworlds in Age of Sigmar. Is there anything else in between? Like, yeah, you have the box game of Warhammer Quest, right? And we have that on Blackstone Forges. Where's the other line?
Yeah, where's the massive battle line?
Well, and I just think that's why I think it would be important for them to differentiate scale.
Yeah. I think even if you kept it at 28 mil, but you did something akin to the Apocalypse rule set, that could work.
Or if you just straight up lift what Mantic does with Kings of War, which is you have a set size, and as long as that set size represents this set of models in this quantity, you can make it look however the hell you want it to.
Yep. Bring back them War of the Ring bases.
They've gone at your statement is correct that they've gone after every competitor that has taken a slice of their pie. Correct. But they've never directly gone after it with the same setting, right? Like they've like put a different twist on it and worked it into a different game. Like, for example, like Underworlds is going after magic, and it's going after kind of that guild ball style of game.
X-Wing.
Right?
X-Wing people.
Yeah. But like now they have Imperialist Nautica on the other side that goes directly after X-Wing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's probably the close adjacency because it's still some sort of plane. But I just don't see them like saying like, okay, we're just bringing back Age of Sigmar in all, or Warhammer Fantasy in all its glory, and you play on squares and you have to do this, and it like plays like Kings of War, because I don't think it sells. Like I just don't see people going back and reinvesting money into those models.
Well, and then to touch on that too, like part of the reason why fantasy died was just because of the number of models that you needed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's Age of Sigmar armies that are horde armies, and it requires a ton of models for you to do, right? But for a staple Warhammer Fantasy army, you needed 2 blocks of 30 dudes plus a whole bunch of extra other stuff.
Yep.
And you could only buy those guys of 30 in boxes of 10.
Or boxes of 12.
Or boxes of 12, or whatever multiplier insert here, right? So I really genuinely hope that they make it a different scale. And that's like, because we don't have an epic scale game right now. We have Titanicus, right?
I'm putting money on that it is an epic style of game. Like
10 mil.
Well, and I think...
Well, it's going to be block. Like, it's going to be block, right? Because that's what they're going after. They're going after that block and movement. But I think it's going to be epic scale.
And with the resurgence in those smaller games, like in creation of new smaller games like Shadespire and Underworlds and Warcry and those other things, they're showing a more increased interest to support more what they used to call specialist games, right?
Yep.
So it would be really, really cool, and especially with the technology that they have now, to see a 10, 15 mil size game of fantasy and pushing blocks of 50 dudes that are on 6-inch wide. I think it would be really cool to see, that's what my hope is. So if they go the square base back to basics, what it was before, I'm probably not going to invest because I've lived it.
Yeah. And I did forget to mention Warcry before. So they have scaled down. Now they scale up, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's adjacent. And here's my prediction. And like, I will bet, like, whatever we need to bet, I'll buy a box of something. I think the answer is staring us right in the face. Because if you look at the logo for Warhammer the Old World, there are massive amounts of troops and siege weapons and big flying creatures, all like kind of silhouetted in that picture. And GW loves to do that stuff.
Yeah.
So I think it like, and I will play, like, I want Epic. I've wanted Epic 40K for years. So if this is like the first thing I get from an Epic scale, Beastmen, here we come.
Nice.
So I really, I'm with you, man. And I think Jared is as well. Like, I hope it's not Age of Sigmar scale adjacent, because I think I don't think that that's the right move.
It's just insulting, really. Like, you rip this whole system out because it wasn't meeting your bottom line to make this new one, which was a complete experiment, because the first rules of Age of Sigmar were essentially just a playtest. Like, congratulations, you're in a live beta. So yeah, I'll leave it there. But
Good.
War Master scale, I'm on board.
You heard it here, GW. Make it happen. You got 3 years.
Well, good. I'm glad we got through all of that Age of Sigmar and 40K talk. But with that, I need to take a break real quick, so we'll be right back.
And we're back, and that'll round us out for the show. Thanks for sticking around. We know this has been a long one, but we had a lot to catch up on, a lot of thoughts and feelings to get out. So just really excited about kind of wrapping up the year and continuing to grow the community. We do want to say thanks for listening. Thanks for interacting, liking and commenting on things that you see on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter. We broke a personal milestone sometime in the past couple of weeks. We have more than 100 followers on Facebook, so that's really exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So
thank you all.
Yeah, so insert party noises here. If you want to find us on Facebook, we're Battle Mallet Podcast. On Twitter, we are Battle Mallet 1, and on Instagram, we are Battle Mallet PCast. And hopefully, in the coming weeks, as we kind of rejuvenate ourselves, you guys will start to see more content popping out there as we look at, posting hobby progress and posting pictures of games played and things like that. If you like what you hear, leave us a review on Facebook or on iTunes. It's the best way to help other people find our content organically, and it lets us know, what we're doing well. Continue to comment, and like and laugh or hate or whatever your emoji of choice is. Interact with us. So I think that's it. So go Petrifex Elite. Them Bone Reapers. So for the Battle Mallet Podcast, we are 3 dads and a man who is going to be world weary soon, whenever he gets back from Mexico. So this is Jared signing out.
This is Trace signing out. 33% chance to ruin your life.
Oh! I'm Jason Tableby Murray. Get the hell out of here.
Peace.
The Battle Mallet podcast is protected under the Creative Commons license. If you have further questions as to its use, you can find more information via links on podcast.battle-mallet.com. Music by Anno Domini Beats.
I don't remember a good blooper.
Yeah, me neither. Trace.